It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter whether or not they had no background that enabled them to socialize into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. Victims of society. Victims of society.
Are you about to kill this man? Like, look at these big ass guns they got on this bed right now. Look at this baby. Look at this baby.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Don't move. Don't move. Don't resist them, okay?
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heal, and bring them to heal, and bring them to heal, bring them to heal.
Shadows start to cross, crescent moons on fire, victims of lies, angels come to die, families blown to hell, children cry alone, dogs roam these dark streets, innocence long gone. We know they lie, they know they lie to us again, we know they lie. Does no one love me? Hypnotized by greed, trample those in need, poverty denied, disoccupied divide, pressures beat the drum, wanting more to come, packaged in a lie. Baxter's all denied. We know they lie. They know they lie to us again. We know they lie. Does no one love me? Authority and fear, police states all in gear. Resist another lie, calls for you to die. Loved ones on the ground, with the hills going down. The devil and his guns got you on the run. We know they lie. They know they lie to us again. We know they lie. Does no one love me? We know they lie. They know they lie to us again. We know they lie. Does no one love me?
My dad didn't do nothing. He's not a criminal. So the governments, please put your heart. Let my parents be free.
And if we're going to get past this, we can't blame it on him. He's a manifestation of the ugliness that's in us.
what exactly these charges are about and why he's being charged for what sounds like the things that journalists do every day.
I can only assume that he's being charged. It's a bit like hanging a magpie on a hedge. I think he's a warning to other journalists who might not write stories, because this is published stories that the powers that be do not want to be published. And so it's a way of warning off other journalists in the future and telling them, don't do this, or we might lock you up in prison for 175 years, even though nothing that you have done is illegal.
Why haven't papers like the New York Times come to Julian Assange's defense?
Well, you would have to, the papers, well, you would have to ask the papers. I was wondering if you were going to ask, why hasn't the DOJ decided to prosecute the New York Times and the Manchester Guardian and the Washington Post, who all published the same information that WikiLeaks did? Why is it that they picked out Julian Assange as an example to hang in the hedge and not those other papers? There is not a hope in hell that Julian Assange would get a fair trial in the Eastern District of Washington, D.C.
Courage calls to courage everywhere. On the 8th of October, we will gather in our thousands to show our solidarity with the world's most courageous publisher, Julian Assange. Thousands of people have already pledged to come here to join hands and form a human chain surrounding Parliament. Come on that day, join us, join thousands of other people, join the human chain to surround Parliament to free Julian Assange. Come with me, and we're going to show you the way that this human chain will form around Parliament. It's Churchill. We're going to cross the Westminster Bridge over to the South Bank and across over Lambeth Bridge and then on the other side of Parliament. And that's what we mean by surround Parliament. Let's go. Bring your friends, bring your colleagues, bring your family members. It's a Saturday, 1 o'clock. It will be glorious. It will be glorious. So here we are in front of the Houses of Parliament, and I encourage you all to write to your Member of Parliament and invite them to the 8th of October to join hands in solidarity with Julian and calling for Julian's freedom. I hope the weather is as good, but come rain, come shine, we will be here on the 8th of October. The human chain on the 8th of October will be fun, it will be an enjoyable day, but it's dead serious. Julian is fighting for his life. His life depends on not being extradited to the United States. This is a political case. It can be stopped here. It must be stopped here. So on the 8th of October, come show your solidarity. Come help free Julian Assange. World's most courageous publisher, Julian Assange. Thousands of people have already pledged to come here to join the human chain surrounding Parliament. Come on that day, join us, join thousands of other people, join the human chain surround Parliament to free Julian Assange.
You know how Julian Assange, obviously he should be freed. I wish more people would speak out about this. I'm calling you, Representative O'Connor. I'm calling you, Pramila Jayapal. I'm calling you, AOC. I'm calling you, Rashid Tlaib. I'm calling all you progressive Democrats who are in Congress to speak out and up against this and about this and to stand for once. You need to say something about it, and you're not letting Republican politicians speak out against this. You're supposed to be progressive.
And someone who has done more than anyone US was over the last 2 to 3 decades has of course been Julian Assange, who currently sits in Marsh prison, is something that I believe to be a hero of the global anti-war movement.
Yeah.
Physical manifestation of that thrust behind the 30 million plus people who are believed to have mobilized the Iraq War in February and March 2003. Now, on the myself, along with many others, we will be outside the British Houses of Parliament, joining hands and surrounding the Parliament to demand the release of Julian Assange and the British government finally take a stand.
The best journalists are persecuted and despised. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. The best Western journalists are overwhelmingly despised, while the worst are acclaimed millionaires. Western civilization is built on lies, dependent on lies, powered by lies. Don't seek widespread approval. It's worthless. Live long enough and you'll learn that the people who will really hurt you and screw you over aren't the obvious, overt monsters, but the sly manipulators who smile to your face. The U.S. empire is a sly manipulator, smiling and posturing as the good guy by contrasting itself with overt monsters. As our consciousness has expanded, it's become unacceptable to be seen as an overt tyrant by the public. But that's just meant the emergence of a sneakier form of tyranny. The age of the brute gave way to the age of the manipulative bitch. This manipulative bitch of an empire has been instigating and orchestrating violence at mass scale, and then using its unrivaled narrative control machine to blame the violence on other powers. And its provocations are only getting more and more aggressive and more dangerous. If humanity meets its end, it will come not at the hands of the overt monsters, but the sly manipulators. The trajectory toward the horrifying global conflict we appear to be fast approaching was set by the manipulative bitch of the U.S. centralized empire. If there's one thing sly manipulators hate, it's people who continuously highlight whatever they are being manipulative. That's what drives the ongoing push to silence, censor, and marginalize critics of empire. Julian Assange is in prison because he spotlighted the manipulative bitch. Manipulators can only manipulate when their manipulations are invisible to their subjects. A grassroots push to bring public awareness to the empire's manipulations would hamstring the empire. The empire knows this, hence the push to neutralize empire critics in myriad ways. A friendly reminder to the English-speaking world that Iran is none of your fucking business, and any kind of intervention from your government literally always makes things worse. Remember, it's crazy and conspiratorial to say the CIA likely is involved or will soon become involved in domestic uprisings in a U.S.-targeted nation. The sane position is to believe that the CIA never does anything, and its officers are all sitting in their Langley offices watching Netflix. The responsible, correct view is that the CIA's extensively documented role in fomenting domestic uprisings around the world is strictly a thing of the past, and that the agency now receives billions and billions of dollars each year to do nothing whatsoever. If you lived with someone who always steals things, you'd suspect them any time one of your valuables goes missing. But you're a crazy conspiracy theorist if you think domestic uprisings in a U.S.-targeted nation might involve the CIA. We learned the CIA was literally plotting to assassinate Julian Assange 5 years ago, and people still act like it's crazy and outlandish to suggest that they're doing evil things in the world currently. If you don't want people speculating about CIA involvement whenever there's unrest in a nation the U.S. government doesn't like, you should be calling for the dismantling of the CIA. Otherwise, you're just supporting the CIA as it works to foment those kinds of uprisings and yelling at people who don't like it. People don't serve in the military. They work in the military. It's a job. And if it's a job with the U.S. or any of its imperial member states, it's one of the most unethical jobs that anyone can possibly have. People who defend the U.S. empire from criticism aren't actually defending the empire. They're defending their worldview. They're staving off the flood of cognitive dissonance they'd experience if they saw that everything they believe about the world is a propaganda-induced lie. That's why so many of them say things like, "Of course our government does bad things, but," and then make up some nonsense gibberish like, "You think Putin is an innocent little flower," or whatever. They don't love the empire. They're just flailing around protecting their worldview. Their arguments consistently lack robustness because they're not invested in defending some globe-spanning power structure. People don't usually do that unless they're paid to. They're just throwing up any kind of walls they can that will protect their worldview. Still, though, imagine being such an embarrassing, sycophantic bootlicker that you're emotionally incapable of handling the fact that there are a few fringe people on the internet who spend their time criticizing the most powerful and destructive government on Earth. Imagine actually seeing that as a problem. There are actual people who sincerely see the existence of empire critics anywhere online as a problem that needs to be solved. How far gone do you have to be to live like that? How much bullshit must you have poured over your mind and heart for that to seem sensible? Most people get that you can't win a nuclear war, but not enough people understand that you can't even remain fully in control in a nuclear standoff. There are too many small moving parts, too many things that can go wrong. Google nuclear close calls if you doubt this. Our rulers are ushering us into a nuclear standoff of steadily increasing escalation, and they cannot control its outcome. They're gambling everyone's life, hoping to win the prize of planetary domination, and their game is getting more dangerous by the day.
We will gather thousands to show solidarity with the world's most courageous publisher, Julian Assange. Thousands of people have already pledged to come here to join hands and form the human chain surrounding Parliament. Thousands of other people in the human chain to stop Parliament to free Julian Assange.
You know how I feel about Assange. Obviously, he should be freed. I wish more people would speak out about this. I'm calling you, Representative O'Connor. I'm calling on you, I'm calling on you, AOC. I'm calling on you, Rashida Tlaib. I'm calling on
Okay, hello everybody. This is Kathy Vogan for Consortium News. We are starting a little bit early because they have decided to start organising the chain at 12:30, and we're at Winston Churchill statue, and the people are taking off from here, and they will be heading, if we just turn around a bit, you'll see, here's Big Ben. And we'll be heading across the road, they will, and the chain actually starts from the Cromwell, Oliver Cromwell statue. And down there will be Stella Assange and other key speakers here today. I just spotted Craig Murray, who was floating around. John Rees from Don't Extradite Assange is here. They are organising the event. What we can see over here is a lot of life-size statues of Julian Assange. They have been sent by people who couldn't make it today, and they made some themselves. Now, there's Christian Raffinson over there. We can go over and say hello to him. He's the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, so let's go and say hello to Christian. Just come this way. Hello, it's Kristen Raffinson. We are live on Consortium News.
Good.
And we have a wonderful streaming partner today, 42 Live, who are working with us so they can stream from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, very good.
It's brilliant technology. So how are you, Kristen?
I'm fine. I mean, I feel good about this event. It's so important. And I mean, the weather couldn't be better. And it's like the sun is shining in approval on this protest. I mean, it's a dark subject, but you know, it's good to be coming together in this weather and just raising your fists basically towards Parliament in a symbolic manner and saying, you know, you have to act. This cannot go on any longer. The will of the people is very clear. Enough is enough. 3.5 years in Belmarsh prison for Julian Assange. It just has to end.
Well, I do recall your speech near Downing Street. Forgive me, I don't know London that well, but I remember you talking about this is a dark force that we are trying to oppose.
It definitely is, and I think more and more people are actually sort of feeling it in their own skin. I mean, it's coming. It's like a virus infiltrating our civil society of everyday life. And it's not the kind of a dark force that comes in the leather boots fascism style of the 30s. It is a new kind, and even a more malicious one, because it infiltrates everything. It erodes what is sacred to us, you know, empathy and humanity. And we can sense that this is sort of destroying our world. And the people are lacking guidance into action in countering this and doing something about it. And this has been a process that's been going on for quite a while, at least the entire 20-plus years of the century. And people are starting to realize that what Julian did and WikiLeaks, you know, more than a decade ago was create an awareness. There was a, you know, like opening a glimpse and seeing actually what's going on. And because of that, you have this strong reaction because the truth is so strong. And you can actually measure the achievement of Julian and WikiLeaks in part by the vicious reaction. Why is it so important to basically try to kill an individual that simply is doing a journalistic work? But it was so important. It exposed so much. So that is what we need to keep in mind, and try to rekindle that spirit and make it grow. And I know we get there because we do not have any other option, actually. We are basically, if we stop swimming, we'll sink, every one of us. I mean, it's a persecution now of Julian, and he stands alone in that fight with the supporters behind him, yes. But today it's about Julian. Tomorrow it's about you and me and all of us.
That's right. I don't know if you saw the very first event in this chain of human chains that was in Melbourne, Australia. 3,000 to 5,000 people turned up, and they were chanting, "Julian told the truth. WikiLeaks has the proof." Now, it seems to me that there is the problem for Americans of kind of losing their First Amendment.
Yep.
But really, it's more than that. It's about losing a grasp on reality, isn't it?
It is, and we see reality being undermined in a spectacular manner every day. And, for me, a journalist for, 30-plus years now, it's just absolutely appalling to see my colleagues, what I consider colleagues, actually taking part in that. Throwing about the speculation or false information that obviously do not match reality. And everyday people, they don't need a degree in political science or economics or history to see through it. It's becoming so blatant, but it seeps in. That's why I'm talking about this sort of slow and gradual undermining of our civil society. It's all part of the same struggle. It's not an individual case that you can just take out. You have to think about it in context with what's going on in the world. I was asked just earlier here about
World Today.
The World Today. I mean, I was asked a bit earlier about what's your hopes for Liz Truss government. I said, what? We're talking about a new prime minister that sets a record in actually, basically destroying the pound and coming up with economic policies that even economists in her own party are sort of discrediting and saying, where on earth did this come from? What rabbit hole is this? This doesn't work. And now we see backtracking. And let me remind you, I'm probably going to say this again here today because it sticks with me. When Boris Johnson actually had his last speech here in the Parliament, his farewell speech, and was giving advice out to his successors, he only touched upon foreign policy on one point. He said, well, on foreign policy, and I'm paraphrasing actually, but the essence of it was, just do what the Americans tell you. That's the essence, and you were stunned, and I was amazed that more people didn't pick up on it because it was so amazing. This is the grand nation who is reveling Churchill here on a grand statue about the fight against fascism and Nazism in the World War, and where is the pride of the nation that has a leader that says just be a lapdog, put the leash on and extend it. And that's exactly what's been happening. I've been following this case. I've been in every court proceedings here, and it's absolutely appalling to see how laws are stretched, the illegality of the entire process, the silence of the politicians, or the negative comments that are being made. It is appalling. Maybe there's a breaking point. Maybe into the winter, where people actually are faced with the reality of having to choose whether to heat their homes in the cold or feed their children. I mean, that's the reality that's ahead.
What a shame that we have to be driven that far. I always what drew me into WikiLeaks well over a decade ago was that I perceived Julian to be sort of anti-war. Because of the destruction. And he said something that really stuck with me. Populations don't like wars. Populations have to be fooled into wars. Yeah. How does that apply today, do you think? And how would he feel about what's going on now with the media? I'm not going to put sort of words in the mouth. When I visited in prison, I saw him on Thursday morning. To be frank, I mean, I try to spend the limited time I have with him in trying to cheer him up and trying to ease his pain in that situation. But of course we talk politics, but I'm not going to sort of trying to sort of reflect on what he thinks about current situation. But do you think, you said who's pro-war? It is, sorry? You did say who's pro-war? I mean, yeah, who is pro-violence, who is pro-death, who is pro-killing children? I mean, that's appalling. I never understood this sort of negative connotation people dare to put on the words anti-war. Who is pro-war? It's like being a pro-killer, like it's absurd. Of course, nobody wants war. People have to be tricked into war, yeah, that's true. And that has happened frequently in our time. And when I'm talking about our time, even my adulthood. And of course, it's going to happen again and again. Yes. Well, look, Kristen, I won't keep you any longer because it's clear that the chain is forming, and we start down at Oliver Cromwell's statue, so we should just head down there now. Head down, yeah. Are you going to speak down there? I don't know if I...
if I'm going to be invited. Let's see what happens. I've lost my people.
Somebody said you were, so race you down. Thank you, folks. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back soon when we get down to Oliver Cromwell's statue. We have another camera filming that's not streaming live, but that's capturing the whole crowd. Oh, I just spotted Craig Murray, so maybe time for a few words with him. And we'll, are we off? Right.
We're on.
We're on right now? Yeah. Good. I've just spotted Craig Murray over here. So he was the former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, and many, many moons back he blew the whistle on torture, black sites in Uzbekistan. And, well, I mean, he was working for the government then, but he isn't now. That kind of thing doesn't go down very well. So let's go and try and talk to Craig. Can I just get your help? Excuse me, we're live to air now, Consortium News. Could I just possibly get a few words? Because we have to head down to Cromwell statue. Folks, as I said, that this is Craig Murray, former British ambassador to Uzbekistan and whistleblower extraordinaire on black sites and the most horrible forms of torture. It's a man that I've greatly admired for the last almost a decade, I think. Craig, it's lovely to see you here.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's lovely to see so many other people here as well, which, you know, when you consider that this is really made up of individuals, that there aren't large organisations supporting this activity. This is just people concerned about civil liberties, individuals wanting to support human rights. So it's great to see so many good people gathered together.
Yes. Oh, well, look, are you going to speak down there? Are you going to say a few words?
I expect so. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure what's happening. I've just turned up and I'm joining in the creative chaos of the moment, which is always good fun. But hopefully somebody has everything in hand and everything will...
John Rees from Don't Extradite Assange. But it hasn't officially started yet. We're just taking advantage of who's in the crowd. So this is very cash.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to do things that way. But yeah, how we're going to form the chain and who's going to stop at what stage and then where speeches will be made are things
That's
that
down at
I'm not quite
statue.
sure.
Probably about 1:30, John said.
And then we'll form a chain after that?
The chain gets formed first. That's what they're doing now.
That's a bit strange, because then that means that most of the people will be miles away from the speeches.
Bloody hell, that's what I thought. Oops, I'm not supposed to be crude on air.
Anyway, never mind.
How do we film that?
Never mind. We'll make it up as it goes along. Having flown back from Edinburgh, flown down in the early hours of this morning, I'm not going to be walking too far in the chain.
No. Well, the chain doesn't walk. They all stand still and try and hold hands right around.
Yeah, some of them are going to be a couple of miles away from here, though, because it's quite a long way around and the way to Lambeth Bridge to get there. So who gets to what point and who's designated to stay where? I'm quite interested to see how it all works out.
Well, we'll probably cluster around there, I imagine. Craig has been covering the Assange case, as I have myself. Consortium News, Craig Murray, have been in the courtroom for about 3 years now. Craig, you got anything more to say about how the case is progressing? We're waiting for the decision on whether a cross appeal can take place. What's happening there?
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to remember, that Julian hasn't actually had his appeal against the decision to extradite yet. The only appeal that's been held was the American appeal against the points, the health points essentially, on which it was specifically decided not to extradite. Julian's appeal against extradition is still awaited, and that will shift the courtroom focus back again onto the fundamental questions of human rights and freedom of speech, on the abuses of process in the case, the fact that the American government was spying on Julian's legal conferences, but they obtained all of his legal documents from the Ecuadorian authorities after he was removed from the embassy, on the fact that the extradition treaty under which he's being extradited specifically states there should be no political extradition, or numerous other points of appeal which are yet to be heard. I should be very, very surprised if the High Court doesn't agree to hear that appeal, so we have some time to go. But the problem is, of course, that all this time Julian is held in dreadful conditions in a maximum security prison. So to some extent the process is for punishment, but the process still has a long way to go.
Well, this isn't supposed to be a political case, but how likely is it that the US or the UK would want some of those matters to be heard in court?
Yeah. I think it's going to be very difficult to prevent the court. It's very, very hard to see an argument that the High Court should not hear the appeal, because plainly there are points of appeal on which there are legal principles of quite a high magnitude to be discussed, particularly the right to confidentiality of legal consultation, and of course the entire principle of the application of the extradition treaty and all its provisions under which the application takes place. The UK government's viewpoint is that there is nothing in general that prevents the UK government from breaking international law in its domestic law, that an international treaty doesn't bind the UK in what it does internally. And even if you accept that is true, and I mean, it's it's a very bad thing, but it is true that the British courts have always held that the UK government is not bound by external treaties. Whether that can be said to apply to a treaty which is the operating instrument under which extradition is taking place.
And it post-dates as well, doesn't it? It wasn't it 2007, the treaty, but the act is earlier?
That's true. It does indeed. And before that, no political extradition was specifically included in the UK's general extradition legislation. But I mean, all this is bluntly nuts. You know, Julian is being charged for espionage by a country, and he hasn't been near that country either at the time of the offence or since. You know, he's an Australian citizen who's operating outside the United States, so how he can be said to have committed an offence within the United States, you know, in considering extradition at all, the United Kingdom is admitting an extraordinary United States claim of universal jurisdiction. There's so many legal points which are just completely wrong in this case that it's very hard to believe that the High Court won't hear them. And I personally believe the High Court will hear them. That doesn't necessarily mean we will win. I mean, I think anybody who believes that in political cases like this the courts are genuinely independent is extremely naive. It would be extremely naive to believe that.
I think you've answered my question there, Craig, and the crowd is really thinned out here. I can see a big crowd down there at Oliver Cromwell's statue, so we really should head down, I think, and hopefully if you get there quickly we'll hear you speak to a bigger audience. But you have spoken to the whole wide world here on Consortium News, or so to speak. Thank you so much for that. Lovely to see you again. Okay, we'll come back.
To my shame, I have to say I'm the one who missed the elephant in this case. Because when Julian Assange's lawyers first contacted me, I didn't want to get into this case. I felt like I saw this message, you know, appearing on my screen that Julian Assange is asking for your protection, and I immediately had this visceral reaction of, oh, this is this hacker, this rapist, this spy, this, you know, traitor. I'm not going to get manipulated by this guy. And I kind of just dropped that message. I didn't even get into this case. And so they had to come back 3 months later, and that was just a few weeks before he was expelled from the embassy, and say, look, we really have you know, clear indications that he might be expelled from the embassy soon, and that would mean that he would be extradited to the US, where, you know, he might be facing an unfair trial and human rights violations. And they sent me a couple of pieces of evidence, you know, medical opinions and other pieces of evidence. And I started to look at these. And the deeper I got into this case, the more contradictions appeared. And I realized that there was really nothing to back up this narrative about the rapist and narcissist, you know, the traitor and all of this, but that this really had been created, this narrative, intentionally, to divert attention from what this case is really about. This is really about state secrecy being exposed by an investigative journalist who has come up with a mechanism that is extremely powerful, because it offers whistleblowers a possibility to transmit evidence for misconduct anonymously, without, you know, incurring a lot of risk. And WikiLeaks, his organization, would then publish this evidence for the benefit of the public. And so that's extremely powerful, and governments immediately realize that if this proliferates, if there's not one WikiLeaks, but maybe, you know, 100 or 1,000 WikiLeaks at some point all over the world, then that's the end of our business model of secrecy.
It hasn't been easy, this case. All the years that you've been with Reporters Without Borders, would you say that this has been the most challenging one for you to monitor?
In terms of a campaign, because I am responsible for our global campaign to free Assange, I would say it has been one of the more challenging cases in terms of trying to effectively mobilize the public. And I found that in many countries, there's more sympathy for Assange. There's a, sort of more of a public understanding of the reasons he's been targeted and the principles at stake. It's been more challenging in the countries responsible for this, the US and UK. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's very clear that there has been a concerted attempt by some to paint him in a certain light. It has largely proven effective. So as campaigners, that's made our job a bit trickier to make sure that the public focuses on the reasons he's been targeted, the precedent this could set. We need to see more pressure by the publics on our own governments. If there were more pressure in this case, I don't believe that our states would get away with what they're doing.
Right. Some of his detractors, particularly in mainstream media, some of the big outlets, don't describe him or refer to him as a journalist. There's no mistake about it with RFS that he is a serious journalist, and WikiLeaks is a serious publication.
Well, what I would say is, because I think that has also been an argument that's been used to distract from the core issues too. I would say it doesn't actually matter if one considers him a journalist, because it's undeniable that he has been targeted for publishing information in the public interest, right? So whether or not that label applies to him, various organizations have different criteria. He's a publisher. He is also, in many ways, a journalistic source. So it's a little complex, but it doesn't matter if you look at why he's been targeted. In every case, it's not about who somebody is, but why they've been targeted. And we are 100% convinced that Julian Assange was targeted for publishing this information, which informed public interest reporting around the world. That is really important for journalism. And anyone who thinks that this will stop with Julian Assange, if the US successfully extradites him and persecutes him there, this could apply to any publisher, any journalist, any source. We could see many more cases like this in the future.
I stood up for Julian Assange, not just from the start, but on the most difficult thing. You see, the enemies of Julian Assange knew what they were doing. They didn't accuse him of shoplifting. They didn't accuse him of passing a fake note or a false check. They didn't accuse him of any of the things that wouldn't have cut through in the way that what they did accuse him of did with the liberals, the progressives, the left, and so on. They knew that if they could accuse Julian on sexual matters, on issues of sexuality, on women's rights, that they could destroy him amongst the very constituency that would be most likely to defend him. And when I defended him, I was then myself witch hunted and victimized over my stand on that. I knew instinctively at first, and then with chapter and verse, that the allegations against Julian in Sweden were false. I had the benefit of knowing him personally. I met him first in the Ecuador embassy, but I had worked with him prior to that without having met him. So I knew that he was a man of the finest metal, really, a treasure, a man that in a sane, logical, rational world would be a Nobel laureate, a man who stood up to the power, the same power I stood up to in the Senate, but with a very great deal more danger to him than I faced. After all, I was a British member of Parliament. They weren't going to put me in an orange jumpsuit and take me to Guantanamo Bay. At least I didn't think that they were. But Julian had no such assurance. He went into the lion's den without any of the protections that I had. And he did it on the most important things, the issues of war, torture, and the abuse of power.
The reason, the other reason they imprisoned Assange and have silenced him and have demonized him is to keep anybody else from speaking about the things that he revealed. So even if you're not talking about jail, it's pretty clear that if you stand with him, you're going to be marginalized. Nobody wants to go through that, not even in some rhetorical way. So that is why Assange is in prison, why he's been silenced, and he's been demonized, as we're told he's the reason Trump was president. That's a whole other fraud, which is not true. He did not, Russians didn't hack. WikiLeaks, somebody at the DNC leaked those emails to him. I like to speak up on behalf of Julian Assange at every opportunity, because he revealed, and this is why they have beaten down on him so badly, he revealed U.S. war crimes. He is a political prisoner. He should be seen as such. Most 90% of what you're told about him is a lie. He is not a rapist. He is not a hacker. He is none of those things. And they hate him because he revealed the truths that they want to keep hidden. And
he wasn't even charged for.
No, he was not. But that's how they keep people from supporting him, because there are people who, when we're in sync politically, and they'll say, "But what about the rape charge? Wasn't he a rapist?" And I'm like,
he was never charged with it.
He was not. And the only reason Sweden didn't drop the case was that the U.S. was pressuring them not to do so.
To make very clear, the Swedish prosecutors have invested, millions and a decade to try to find evidence to indict him for those rape allegations, and they have not been able to find even enough evidence to indict him, not to convict him, even to indict him formally. So basically, they had nothing from the beginning. And what we can see in this case is that the authorities didn't care from the beginning about those women or about the truth. They cared about the headline. They pushed that headline out very, very quickly against the will of those women who never claimed that they had been raped when they went to the police with a completely different purpose. And then this was enforced by the government, the authorities, the police authorities, the prosecutor. For the next years, they pushed very aggressively this public narrative of Assange being a fugitive rape suspect, but they suppressed the truth, which is that Assange systematically tried to testify. Through his lawyers, they called the prosecutor. He stayed 1 month longer in Sweden than originally planned because he wanted to testify. He actually did testify once after a few days already at the police, and when they realized that they really didn't have any evidence, they made sure not to question him again. Because once they find out they don't have evidence, well, they have to basically acquit him and drop the case and say, well, he's innocent. They didn't want to say that. So they waited until he left Sweden, and he left only after he asked for authorization. Very important. He didn't flee. He asked the prosecutor, can I leave? The prosecutor says, yes, you can leave. 2 weeks later, he leaves. And that very day he leaves, she issues an arrest warrant because he's fleeing the country, trying to evade justice, which is absolutely not true. And then so he goes to London and he offers to come back to Sweden. He offers a date 10 days later, and the prosecutor says, no, I have to refuse that date. That's too late. And so she did everything she could, this prosecutor, to prevent him from actually testifying. He said, well, if I can't come to Sweden, well, then I'll testify, through video call or through the phone. And because there is a mutual legal assistance agreement between the Swedes and the UK, which makes that possible. It's done all the time, but she refused it in his case. And then she said, now you have to come back to Sweden. And at that point, he suspected that there was a intention to then extradite him onwards to the United States. And he said, okay, I'll come to Sweden. And I've talked to his lawyers. They confirmed to me that they personally informed the Swedish government that Assange is prepared to come back, but please give him a guarantee you will not send him onward to the United States. And Sweden always refused to do that, and without any decent explanation. So he was absolutely justified to be worried. And I can confirm, as someone who has worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, these types of assurances, of guarantees, are given all the time. So if a state doesn't give those guarantees, it means they have some intentions. I mean, that's absolutely clear. So this is just a Swedish dimension where you see that a narrative of the fugitive rape suspect has been perpetuated and, you know, pushed aggressively. And so with this, obviously they undermined the public support for him because everybody saw him now as a rapist.
Right.
So that was the purpose of this, you see?
Meeting us. Does he have a private meeting room? So
You
head
guys
out
are
into the
live.
street with Reverend Annie.
You guys are live.
And we'll get you started.
Oh, we're live? Okay, well then I'll stop bouncing my cameras around. You know, I'm doing 2 cameras right now. Okay, I think I'm recording here. Am I recording? Ah, I can't see if I'm recording. I'm so blind. Okay, I'm recording now. So I am live and I'm recording. What? Yeah, he's trying to. She's waiting for a link. Where's Annie? I don't see her. Oh, okay, here they go with the ribbon. See, they're walking with the ribbon. We're gonna walk around the Department of Justice. Everybody's gonna grab a piece of it, and this is so hard working 2 cameras. As soon as Amber's live, I'm gonna ditch my live stream. Oh, or my phone's just gonna shut down on me.
Still okay.
What's that? I don't know if anybody smells them. I don't think anybody smells them.
Look at Ford's fancy setup. Ford's got the fancy setup. Okay, so we're marching around the Department of Justice right now with the Free Assange banner. If you guys can see or hear me.
They can.
Okay, great. Hi, fams. It's been a heck of a last 36 hours. No sleep, lots of airports, death rides through DC. But we made it. Okay, I'm at the beginning now, so you see Misty up here, her bullhorn. And of course, Reverend Annie is up here. I'm gonna try to get up here and get a shot of Reverend Annie. Sorry, guys, I got 2 viewfinders I'm trying to keep an eye on. I got a camera in each hand.
Julian Assange.
Okay, I'm gonna let this go by because I was at the lead, so I want to get back here so you guys can see how many people are participating. This is amazing. This is a great turnout compared to prior events, for sure. Amber ever come online, Oz?
Yeah, she's.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Because I'm down to like 8% battery on my phone, so my
let
live
it-
stream's gonna die.
Let it run out.
Yeah,
I
I've got
don't have
battery
audio
pack.
for Amber yet.
Sabby, look, there's Sab. Sabby! Yay! Okay, so this seems to be the rear. And now it's time for me to run all the way back up to the front because that's what we do.
You have the best look. Your
Do I?
camera. Your camera looks the best. You need to figure out how to charge that.
Oh, I've got 3 battery packs with me.
Okay.
But wait till you see my video, my 4K video I'm taking, because it's just as beautiful.
All right. Keep them charged.
I just picked up a stick. Figure out your clipping, or is it conspiracy? Trying to get back up to the front of this, so. There's the Assange billboard. I think there's 2 of them that I saw cruising town. There is a lot going on in DC. Oh my gosh. Every corner's got some rally, protest, beer garden. You got anybody else's live feed yet?
I'm working on it.
I know Eric's got his phone up, so I'm sure he's got a feed. Okay, I'm gonna cut to the front of the line. So sweet of DC Metro to always give us escorts every time we come to town. We feel so special. Can you guys hear the chanting?
Yes.
And the whistle. Oh, they're pushing us up on the sidewalk. Okay, guys, I'm kind of in a traffic jam. Give me a second. Oh, the sun's gonna come out. Okay. I saw Suzanne for 2 seconds, but I didn't get a chance to talk to her. She was deep in conversation with somebody. Extradition. No extradition. No extradition. No extradition. I'm trying to get back up to where I can get on the other side of this. No extradition. Now it's getting warm, and I have a big coat on. Trey! No extradition! You gotta dodge the other phototoggers.
No extradition. There's only one decision. No extradition. No extradition.
You are the talk of the town. On my way up here, I heard 3 different people talking about the guy dressed like a deer.
Really?
I was like, oh, that's up in the rally. I already saw it. Yeah. Security guards in a parking garage, just everyday people on the street. That's good. Get them talking about what we're doing.
Buildings as I walk by,
Like they've never seen a deer? They've never seen a deer? Seriously? That's crazy.
That's why I'm here.
There's no deer. GD! Hi, GD!
There's someone who is a hero.
That is my really good friend. She's a Catholic worker. She does mass mission work. Haiti. Tomorrow we're doing a rally in front of the White House for the regime that Biden's supporting in Haiti. Oh, here comes Ford. I get out of the way when Ford comes. Okay, I'm making sure I'm still good. Oh, I see Amber. I see Amber. Hi, Amber. Free Assange. Now. Now.
Free Assange.
An eloquent orator.
Now.
But you won't hear him speak.
Now.
Locked away in silence.
Now.
One who knows too well.
Oh, say hi.
How those in
cameras everywhere.
There's another war.
Oh no, my peace button. Like that's ever gonna happen. Well, we flew in like that.
There's one who stands accused.
It has been a death run to get here.
Exactly what offenses the U.S. has with
now
to say precisely which, or to try to clear the mist, or to explain how he's not the same
Free Assange
as the other journalists behind these prison walls. Is a person made to cry.
So odds when my battery dies, it'll take a few for you to switch out batteries, but I'll
that keep us all alive. A person being tortured.
Now.
As we stand here now, for revealing the why. Behind these prison walls.
Now. Suzanne's live, it looks like. Maybe Misty too. Looks like you lost Amber.
Julian Assange! Julian Assange! Free! Free! Julian Assange! Julian Assange! Julian
Hi!
Assange!
Hi, Lizzie! Let's chat when we get back over. Good to see you. That was one of our Patreons, Lizzie Pickles, longtime supporter of Roar Media. Yeah, it is. extradition. No extradition. If I let the line go too far by, then I got to do the run back thing. I've done a lot of running already today. It's a good thing I've been working out for the last month, getting ready for this. But this guy's got the stacks of camera. I thought I was bad with 2. He's got 3. But at least he's got straps for him. Jail John. Yeah, he's fun. Nice. There, yeah, Suzanne's getting riled up to say free Assange, jail, John Bolton. Which is awesome, right? We'd all love to see Bolton held to account for his war crimes, decades of war crimes.
Jail John Bolton. Jail John Bolton. Jail John Bolton. Free his son. Jail John Bolton. Free his son. Jail John Bolton.
Make it to the end again.
Jail John Bolton.
Okay, yeah, we're back at the end. So now I get to do the run back to the front of the line. That over there is the Natural History Museum for all of you buffs watching. I'm Shanda. More media. We're women in independent media.
All right. Yeah.
I was going to grab a handful of our women in independent media pins and pass them out, and then I freaking forgot. Got a billion things you're trying to do. Wrap this building. Wrap it up. Oh, my backpack is like pulling my head off my shoulders. Guess what, guys? I went to a Korean bathhouse today. That was a first for me. I'll tell you all about it when I get back. Somebody smells good out here, and I know it's not me because I forgot to put perfume on it. It's probably good when you're in a crowd. Can't believe my battery's held out this long. I can't see it. Why do I not see it? Okay, I see. Okay, is that Amber's feed, the free Assange feed? Okay, that'll. Hold on, guys. My earbud fell out of my ear, and then it tied into a knot. And now I have one here. All right, guys. I promise I'll get it together. I just have more stuff than I have hands right now. Okay, now I'm back to kosher. switch hands, guys. Now we're back. Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Okay, I think we're back to the start. Free Assange! Now! I am going to set my camera up right there. Sorry. Too many cameras, man. When I realize I'm not getting a good shot on my camera, my other camera, I set my phone down to fix it. Vice versa. I will get better at this. Ah, Franco's here somewhere. I just saw Frank Analysis just went live, which means Franco's here. I will be finding Franco. Yeah, I see Amber up here. I'm going to try to get up to the press spot.
Free, free.
Get through the crowd.
Free, free. Free, free.
Okay, so.
What do we want?
You got
When do
Amber's
we want
name,
it?
right?
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him? What does the planet need? When do we need
Okay,
him?
I'm going to cut out to get my battery
What does
before
the
switches
planet
come. I'll be back.
When do we need him? What do we need?
Yeah,
When
this
do we
is going to
need
be
him?
loud, Oz.
What
Amber's
do we
coming in.
need? When do we need him? What do we need? When do we need him?
What do we want?
What do we want?
Tricked you there.
Can you hear it, Oz?
What do we want?
What do we want?
When do we want it?
When do we want it?
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want?
How's the sound from it?
What do we want? 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 I want to hear it. What do we want? What do we want? They need to hear you inside. What do we want? When do we need it? What do we want? When do we need it? All right, that's it. That's the first time. You got to take over.
Everybody give it up for Ian Schlackman, my good friend. And I don't know where the other guy went that had a megaphone. I didn't catch her name, but she kicked ass too, so thank you wherever you went. Comrade who? Ellie, Comrade Ellie from PPA. Thank you, my friend. That was amazing. Ian and Ellie led us around the block with Reverend Andy Chambers leading the charge. So thank you guys for doing that. That was amazing.
So folks out here are hoping that both charges will be collapsed, which would be an American decision, or that the extradition would be denied. British either of those paths.
All right, everybody. That was amazing. I'm not going to lie, I got a little emotional. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Misty Winston. I'm an organizer and activist with Action for Assange. We've been around for, I don't know, too long. When we started, we thought maybe we'll be doing this for 6 months, and here we are like 4 years later. So we have an amazing list of speakers, so I'm not going to waste any of your time rambling, which is what I'm known for. I'm going to not do that, though. So leading us off really needs no introduction. Her name is Dr. Jill Stein. She is, yes, give it up for Dr. Jill Stein. She is an American physician and activist. She was the Green Party's nominee for President of the United States in 2012 and 2016, and I voted for her both times. And she is also a member of the amazing group Doctors for Assange, so she is representing them as well today. So once again, please give it up and welcome Dr. Jill Stein.
Thank you so much for everything you do. Everyone here is a hero. We are all Julian Assange. We all need Julian Assange, and we all need to stand in for him as best as we can until Julian Assange is free. I especially want to thank the members of the press, because the real press is here today, not the old press, who are the ones that should be here, but are busy keeping us down in so many ways. So as we know, what's going on here is not just a threat to the life of Julian Assange, it's really a threat to the life of our democracy. The more you look at this case, the more you become traumatized, I must say, by just looking at what is going on. This is an assault not only on freedom of the press, it makes a complete mockery of our judicial system. It is an attack on human rights. It's absolutely unacceptable. What we are watching here really is a microcosm of the crisis of our democracy. So we have no choice except to keep fighting back. And I have to mention, I'm here today representing Doctors for Assange, which is a group of healthcare providers, doctors, psychiatrists, and psychologists who've made the point that the treatment of Julian Assange is basically one of psychological torture, and it must not be tolerated. So what we really need right now is watchdog journalism. We've had enough of lapdog journalism, which is what we've got today. If we don't have watchdog journalism, how do we ever end the endless wars in which we have spent $21 trillion since 9/11? How much safer are we? How much more democratic and free are we? Not at all. We need to be spending that money on human needs here and around the world, and on a global Green New Deal, and on peace and justice, not on endless war. That is why they are silencing Julian Assange. We need the money that's going into endless war to solve our climate crisis, which is becoming more catastrophic by the day, with a third of Pakistan underwater, with the ice sheets in the Antarctic said to lose a major ice sheet, the so-called Doomsday Thwaites Glacier, in the Antarctic, which is threatening with 2 feet of sea level rise,
need a
which may begin
Zoom.
to accelerate
Somebody
any moment now.
zoom
We
in,
can be
please.
fixing this crisis, but we cannot fix this crisis while we have a press that's basically in bed with the banks and the billionaires and the fossil fuel giants and the war profiteers. So this is about seizing the power that we have. And I just want to remind people, we do have the power. We do have the power, as Alice Walker said. The biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. A poll was just done by Gallup, and they found that overwhelmingly, the major concern of people in this country is for jobs. It's for an end to inflation. It's for being able to afford the cost of living. It's for health care as a human right. These are the things that people want. The number of people who thought that the business with Russia is the leading issue amounted to a measly 1%. Yet that is what we hear the lapdog media screaming about all the time. So don't take that propaganda at face value. Have the courage of our convictions. Let's keep fighting. We are going to free Julian Assange and protect our democracy for all of us. Thank you all so much for being here.
Wow, let's hear it for Jill Stein. Woo! How you guys doing? My name's Amber King. I'm with Roar Media, flew out from the beautiful Pacific Northwest to join you all here today. And I would like to introduce our next speaker. Please give it up for Chip Gibbons. He is the Policy Director of Defending Rights and Dissent, where he advises lawmakers on the Espionage Act and the First Amendment implications of pending legislation. As a journalist, Chip has analyzed U.S. prosecutions of our truth tellers, highlighting the violations against the First Amendment and human rights. Please give it up for Chip.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. And as already was mentioned, I'm with Defending Rights and Dissent, an organization that for 6 decades has defended your right to know and your freedom to act. It is so great to see so many of you here today. This is an extremely heartening crowd. It is inspiring. But I want to take a minute at the beginning to remind us of some of the people who could not be here today, like Edward Snowden, who was in exile because he exposed how our government lied on or spied on us in violation of their own laws and lied about it. Like Daniel Hale, who right now is in a communications management unit for exposing the realities of drone warfare. Communication management units are draconian prisons reserved for terrorists. The drone program is terrorism, not whistleblowing. And of course, the reason we're all here today, Julian Assange, who is right now in Belmarsh, one of the most draconian prisons in the world. Once again, generally reserved for terrorism. Very interesting. The person who exposed the terrorism is the one there. For over 105 years, the Espionage Act has cast a shadow over our society. It may sound like a law that is aimed at spies and saboteurs, but it is a law that has censored, silenced, and chilled opposition to U.S. foreign policy, whistleblowing, and journalism. It was passed during World War I, and not a single German spy was prosecuted under it. Instead, thousands of Americans like Eugene Debs and Big Bill Haywood, who did not think we should be in a bloody and pointless European war that may have been extremely profitable to the war profiteers and the arm manufacturers and the captains of industry, but came at a heavy cost that was paid by the working class. Those people were in jail. Their prosecution so enraged the public, we had a movement like never before for freedom of speech that redefined free speech itself and turned the First Amendment for more than just words on a piece of paper. Unfortunately, in spite of those fantastic victories, 100 years later, we still have unfinished business with the Espionage Act. And I also want to be clear that there
silenced and chilled opposition to U.S. foreign policy, whistleblowing, and journalism. It was passed during World War I, and not a single German spy was prosecuted under it. Instead, thousands of Americans like Eugene Debs and Big Bill Haywood, who did not think we should be in a bloody and pointless European war that may have been extremely profitable to the war profiteers and the arm manufacturers and the captains of industry, but came at a heavy cost that was paid by the working class. Those people were in jail. Their prosecution so enraged the public, we had a movement like never before for freedom of speech that redefined free speech itself and turned the First Amendment for more than just words on a piece of paper. Unfortunately, in spite of those fantastic victories, 100 years later, we still have unfinished business with the Espionage Act. And I also want to be clear that there is clearly a through line between putting Eugene Debs in jail for saying, and this was the quote that landed him in jail, "If war be right, let the people decide," and persecuting Julian Assange, a journalist who believes that if wars can be started on lies, then peace can be brought by truth. Starting with Daniel Ellsberg, the Espionage Act took on a new purpose, silencing and prosecuting whistleblowers. And the national security state, from as soon as the Pentagon Papers were published, began salivating at the idea of putting away journalists under the Espionage Act. But for decades, that was considered a bridge too far, even by CIA directors and other people who were all willing to use it against whistleblowers. That is until Julian Assange became the first person ever indicted under the Espionage Act for the publishing of truthful information. And we want to make sure he's the last person indicted for publishing truthful information, and that he never stands trial in this country, because if they bring Julian here, it will not just be Assange on trial in the Eastern District, it will be our First Amendment in the docket as well. So we have to make sure the U.S. government...
Maybe except for CRISPR Ray, but I'm not sure, so...
never gets its hands on Julian, and that we amend the Espionage Act so that it can no longer be used to incarcerate, jail, and intimidate those of us who oppose the policies of war and empire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chip. Everybody give it up for Chip Gibbons. All right, joining us next we have James Bovard. James is the author of 10 books. He's on the USA Today Board of Contributors and has written for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. He wrote an article in 2019 in the USA Today calling for awarding Julian Assange with the Presidential Medal of Freedom instead of federal indictment. So everybody please welcome James Bovard.
Hey, I want to start by thanking Misty Winston for doing a great job of organizing this protest. She is really, really good. So there's an old saying that if government makes exposing a crime, then you're being ruled by criminals. Except for Joe Biden. And except for Merrick Garland here. Maybe except for CRISPR Ray, but I'm not sure. So I was trying to make sure I got those caveats added to add to my dossier. Yep. So did everybody here get the official informant bingo game bingo card? So we keep track of the informants? No. Okay. I'll draw the curtain on that. 4 years ago, I did a piece for USA Today that said that instead of an indictment, Julian Assange should get a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, I don't trust presidents, and I don't trust presidents that give medals of freedom to people like Robert McNamara, but I'll make an exception in Julian's case. Julian said if wars can be started by lies, they can be stopped by truth. He's facing 17 counts of the Espionage Act for exposing war crimes that were committed by U.S. forces in Afghanistan and Iraq. The Christian Science Monitor said that the reaction of Congress was to Julian Assange's message was to shoot the messenger. But the Taliban did not buy into the cover-up. And as we saw last year, the American troops were unpopular in Afghanistan. The puppet government collapsed. Congress had no reason not to know. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks showed them 12 years ago that the war was not going to be won, but they kept going. So 3 years ago, when back when Britain arrested Julian Assange for the U.S. government, Senator Joe Manchin said, Julian Assange is our property, and now we can get the facts and truth from him. Unfortunately, Manchin has no recommendations on how we can get the facts and the truth from the federal government right now. Okay, so Biden has ramped up U.S. bombings in Somalia. Who exactly are we killing and why? It's a secret. Question, is U.S. government is still financing Syrian terrorist groups that are slaughtering Syrian civilians? What are the details? It's a secret. Why is the U.S. still bankrolling Saudi atrocities in Yemen? It's a secret. And then there's the biggest and most dangerous secret on the horizon right now, U.S. intervention in the Russia-Ukraine war. We have no idea how far that the U.S. has gone and what kind of actions U.S. might have taken. It's possible there are Pentagon and CIA officials who are trying to who are warning, but those warnings are being ignored, and it might be that we don't find out about it until it's too late. So the Justice Department stresses that Julian exposed classified information. People in D.C. talk about classified information like it's a holy relic that cannot be exposed without damning the nation. How much classified info do the feds have? They make trillions of pages of it per year. That's part of the reason we have little or no idea what the U.S. government foreign policy is right now, because there is an iron curtain that has fallen about this. And this helps explain why there's so little trust in Washington now. Americans today are more likely to believe in witches, ghosts, and astrology than to trust the federal government. We need more hellraisers like Julian Assange to save democracy from the deep state, from big government, and from both political parties. Hopefully we can get him out there, get him out of prison as soon as possible, and thanks for coming to this event.
Thank you, Mr. Bovard. All right. Next, we know him as a political analyst and a progressive radio talk show host. Garland Nixon has served on the board of the ACLU National Board and appeared on multiple TV and radio programs, and my favorite one to watch on Rockfin. Please welcome Garland Nixon.
Hello, hello. And a special hello to my favorite person who's here, Medea Benjamin. Love Medea Benjamin. Yay, that's it for Medea. So, I didn't really have a plan, but on the way over here, a friend of mine, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and I was getting, why are you doing that? The empire's too powerful, you're not going to get anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And I thought about this very short story. It's a good story. I made it up. So there's a guy at the dock. He's standing on the dock, and he's pushing against this aircraft carrier. And somebody walks up to him, and they're like, what are you doing that for? You're wasting your time. You will never move that aircraft carrier. And he says, well, it's a hobby. It's just what I do. I'm a pusher of aircraft carriers. I do it because I enjoy doing it. Whether it moves or not, I'm going to keep doing it. Here's my point, because a special hello also to the people, those who are in the national security, enforcement agencies who are here. You know who you are. I just want to say hi and thanks for helping build up the crowd a little bit. But my point is this. When it comes to this, don't get frustrated. That's what we have to be when it comes to activism. I want to be the person to say to everyone, you don't know if it's going to work, if it's not going to work. Don't be the angry activist. Enjoy your activism. Do it because it's who you are and it's what you do. As a black person, I always think back like to W.E.B. Du Bois, to people in 1900 and 1910 who had no chance that in their lifetime they would achieve what they wanted, but they did it because it was who they are. So to those in the national security state who are here trying to figure a way that they can turn down the volume on this thing, it's not going to happen. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to stand for Julian Assange because it's who we are, it's what we do, and we're not going to stop, and we're going to enjoy the fight. Thank you.
Everybody give it up for Garland Nixon. Thank you, Garland. Okay, I'm personally pretty pumped about being able to introduce our next speaker. She, I think, came from the womb and was immediately in the streets. She is a minister, a Black Panther. She was instrumental to the Poor People's Campaign and is well known for her work as a grassroots community activist for welfare, housing, and healthcare rights. Everybody, please give it up for the legend herself, Reverend Annie Chambers.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here with you today and to speak on what we used to call in the Pampers a true soldier. Julian Assange was a true soldier. He's a soldier. See, everybody put on a uniform ain't a soldier, but he's told the truth. And he's been prosecuted for the truth. He's been prosecuted. And doing this, when I, was about to speak, I was coming, I had to pray. My prayers. Because I've been praying for him ever since they incarcerated him. Along with a lot of other of us, he's incarcerated unjustly. But look where we are. We're in America. A country that was stolen on lies. A country where people with class, as I was explaining to some of my colleagues and one of my sons and my husband coming over here, when they talk of what they call class. Class is money. That's all it is. So, we're in a country that thrives on greed and the viciousness. And when he told the truth about us going other countries, oppressing other people, stealing wealth from other people in other countries, he had to be stopped. That's what they think they can do. But I prayed on this, as I said, and I asked God to give me some clarity. As a minister and a woman of God, because I haven't always been. I haven't always been. But he gives me good clarity. And I picked up the Bible and I seen Paul and Silas, and I read about them. They refused to bear down. Julius refused to bear down. He's not bearing down. I know that he's suffering, and I know that he's being tortured, and he's being abused. But we must understand there's still a higher power. I have belief in this power. I know that this power worked because it brought me through. And it's brought a lot of other, my comrades, through. And we have to understand that while we have to fight this battle, and I say it all the time, whenever I speak and to my family, and to I may not see it in my lifetime. I'm 81 years old. I may not see it in my lifetime, but y'all know that I made a mark. I'm going to be fighting. That's what I tell them. But you remember the Roman Empire? Biggest empire in the world. Thought they could conquer the world. But it was not done. It was not so. That's what America think they are. The greed here in America is so greedy, they think that they can conquer the world, that they can control the whole world. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is not true, America. The Holy Spirit has showed me. America, do you see how we are divided? Even, you know, you got this group and that group, and I'm talking about the political parties. I just want to say the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the everybody's party, but we don't have togetherness party. We don't have a togetherness. And American people, we gotta oppress somebody else. Why they coming to our country? I said, ain't yours, and why the hell you come here? Why you come here? It wasn't yours either. Why they come here getting my job? It wasn't your job in the first place. You understand? So we have to be able to fight against oppression in America and fight for change. That is my whole goal, is to fight for change and oppression in America. But I want Julius to know, I may not never get to meet him or see him, but I want him to know, if ever there's a message getting to him, that I pray for him every night, because that's my faith. That's my faith. That's my belief. I know that he's gonna come out victorious. He's gonna win. All we got to do is to keep him out of the hellhole worse than he's in, and that's America. Keep Julius out of America. When we do that, we got to fight here in America and say no oppression, no for none of us. But we got to fight for Julius Assange. And I want him to know, and his family, and all of y'all to know that every night I pray. Every day I wake up saying, Lord, please bless and keep him. We know that he's suffering. Because who stays in isolation that don't suffer? I got some Black Panther brothers and sisters can tell you about how they stayed in isolation and the abuse that they did to us while we was in prison. So just imagine that 10 times over for him. But keep him out of America. I said to you today, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. They should be able to put his feet on this hellhole of a soil called America. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Annie. That was amazing. We are so with you. Next, I'd like to introduce Spike Cohen, Libertarian candidate for VP in 2020. He has been outspoken voice for freeing Julian Assange and defending independent journalism. Spike, please make your way.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to the corporate media who didn't send a single outlet to cover the fact that there are hundreds of people from across the country of every walk of life across the entire political spectrum, all here calling for the same thing, to free Julian Assange. And it would make sense that they're not here, because if it was up to them, we wouldn't have known about the human rights abuses and outright murder of civilians that happened in Iraq and in Afghanistan. We wouldn't have known about the torture of detainees who've never seen trial in Guantanamo Bay. We wouldn't have known about Hillary Clinton and the DNC rigging the 2016 primary to make sure she won. We wouldn't have known about all of the things that we only know because Julian Assange and WikiLeaks released it to us. So what it makes perfect sense that the corporate media and the government are in lockstep with each other to make sure that this man is being tried for espionage. Let's be clear, what Julian Assange did is called, and hear me out, journalism. What he did was what all of the people who aren't bothered to be here right now should be doing, receiving information and giving it to the public, not putting a corporate spin on it, not editorializing it to death, not censoring it because they don't think it fits their narrative, but giving it to you so you can decide for yourself. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and all of the free independent media that are here, they are the only thing separating you from having absolutely no idea what this government and what this corporate media is doing. They're the only thing that are separating it. Now, the one thing that we keep being told is, well, maybe it was journalism, but if you think about it, the information that Julian released was a threat and was helping these foreign dictatorships, our enemies, these dictatorships. Well, let's take a look at what these dictatorships are doing. Brutally repressing people in their countries, especially the most marginalized in their countries, destabilizing, bombing, invading their neighbors, and getting away with it with no accountability because they suppress that information from being shown to their public. Does any of that sound familiar? Yeah! It sounds like exactly what's happening here. The fact is, Julian wasn't trying to help dictatorships. He was trying to stop the United States from becoming one. And that's why they want him in jail. And that is why it is crucial that we continue to fight to set Julian free. As our numbers grow, as our voices grow louder, we will continue to fight to free Julian Assange until it happens. And if these monsters won't do it, then we'll vote to replace them with people who will. What do we want? When do we want it? You're damn right.
Everybody give it up for Spike Cohen! Okay, so really quickly, and I'm going to do this without crying, I want to give just a really quick shout out. Earlier this summer, we lost one of our Assange warriors, Eric Levy. He was 94 years young, an amazing activist. I have him here on my button. He's here with us today. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. He was the best of us. So just wanted to bring that up really quick. And I did it without crying. Okay, coming up next, we have one of my favorite independent journalists, Dan Cohen. He's a journalist with Mint Press News and a filmmaker. And his latest film is Another Vision, which is a film about the inside of Haiti's uprising. So everybody, please give it up for Dan Cohen.
Thank you, Misty. I want to give a huge round of applause to all the organizers who put this incredible event together and everybody who came out to stand for Assange today. I want to know, raise your hand if you are a reporter for the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian. Are there any of you out there? No, there's not a single, I don't see any hands. One guy's raising his hand, but I think that's just so he can take a picture. But no, what does that say? That if you are a journalist, you're a reporter, and you are not here defending freedom of speech, defending your ability to speak the truth, it means you're not a journalist. You are a propagandist. That's right. That's why none of them are here. And it comes down to regular people, other independent journalists who are not owned by BlackRock, by the mega corporations and financial institutions that dominate our lives. So it comes to us. We are the real resistance in this country. That's right. Yes, exactly. We need to make our voices heard here in the belly of the beast. I mean, think about the importance of Julian Assange, the importance of WikiLeaks in this moment as we are on the press. Assange say about war that every war begins with a lie. And so truth can bring peace. And so let's imagine if we had Cablegate, the massive trove of diplomatic cables that were leaked by WikiLeaks, if we had that right now, what would we know about, let's say, the assassination of Daria Dugina, and the U.S. role in that? The U.S. says, oh, we don't know anything about that. We don't know anything about that. But you can imagine what's being said in classified documents. What would we know? What would those documents reveal about the bombing of the Crimea Bridge overnight, that the U.S. doesn't know anything about it. Just it's, you know, the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence services, are essentially an extension of the CIA, but we don't know anything about it. What would we learn about the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse last year? That the U.S. You know, we don't know anything about that either, even though they sealed the indictment, essentially what a former DEA chief called telegraphing CIA involvement in the assassination. So the reason they're punishing Julian Assange is not because of what he did as one person. It's because he represents the truth that he and WikiLeaks bring to the people, represents a threat to the most violent and dangerous empire in the history of the world. And I'm inspired to see so many people here today who've come from all around the country to make their voices heard, to refuse to submit, and to fight back. So thank you everyone for coming out.
Give it up for Dan Cohen, and go check out his movies too. Next, I'm going to introduce Bethany DuPont. Please make your way to the podium. She is the author and director of Haiti Liberté, the largest Haitian weekly that is published. We are very welcome to have.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today to participate to this great demonstration. Haiti need Assange. The workers in Haiti need Assange. Today, the U.S. imperialism is planning to intervene again in Haiti. Right. Haiti need your support. And Haiti need Assange. Friends and comrades, in 2011, WikiLeaks provided Haiti Liberté newspaper with 2,000 pages of classified diplomatic cables, which allow our team to write dozens of articles over the past 11 years about Washington machination in Haiti. We have published articles about the U.S. try to sabotage Venezuela's project to provide cheap gas and loan account to Haiti known as Petrocaribbean Fund. How it fought effort to raise Haiti minimum wage from $1.75 per day to $5 per day. Right. How it unilaterally deployed U.S. troops into Haiti after January 2000 earthquake. How it integrated Mexican soldiers into Haiti police force. How it approved of deadly assault on Haitian shanty-towns. And how it fought tooth and nail for 7 years to stop President Aristide return to Haiti after he was exiled in 2004. We have also used the secret U.S. embassy cables to profile corrupt Haitian politicians like Yoda Torchi and Woody Erivo, expose the Haitian bourgeoisie attempts to turn the Haitian police into a private militia. And reveal that the U.S. official saw the UN military occupation of brutal, political, and ineffective force. Friends and comrades, WikiLeaks has provided 250,000 cable, which part of Chelsea Manning famous cable gate leaked to mainstream media outlets like The Guardian, New York Times, Le Monde, and Der Spiegel. However, these outlets, which are beholden to the respective establishment, did virtually nothing with the revealed documents. That is why Assange and WikiLeaks team undertook the difficult task of security delivering the cable to Haiti Liberté in Haiti. They did similar deliveries around the world. It is for this valiant effort to disseminate truth and transparency to the world that Assange is now being held in virtually tortured and Belmarsh prison. It is one of the greatest travesties of justice in our lifetime. The fate of press freedom is in our hands. Let us use all our force to demand work for the release of Assange from the clutches of the U.S. Anglo-Saxon axis, which now all our tournaments him in jail cell for the crime of simply publishing indisputable facts which the public needs to know. We at Haiti Liberté are proud to have been one of the WikiLeaks original partners in publishing the truth about Washington crime and mischief worldwide. In this way, WikiLeaks has played an historic role in contributing to Haiti's national liberation struggle, as they have done in other countries. Free Assange. Long live WikiLeaks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Beautiful speech. Okay, very excited. Coming up next, we have my dear friend Eliza Blue. Eliza is a human trafficking survivor and an advocate who works directly with survivors of human trafficking. She also collaborates with international organizations and governments, and she is always fabulous. Please, everybody, give it up for Eliza Blue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eliza. I'm a survivor advocate for those affected by human trafficking. First and foremost, thank you so much to everybody that's made this beautiful event possible. Thank you. Thank you to everyone that has attended today. No thank you to the corporate press because they're not here. You're probably thinking to yourself, what on earth is a female survivor of human trafficking doing here and not over at the Women's March? See, that would, I guess to a logical mind, that would seem like it would make more sense. But the truth is, without a free press, we will have no one to cover women's issues. We will have no one to cover survivors' issues. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here today to advocate for the freedom of Julian Assange. See, when I made the decision to advocate for others' freedom, I didn't want to stop with survivors of human trafficking, or even just my own freedom. I want to advocate for all those who need to be free. Julian Assange is one of those people. But if we don't advocate for Julian Assange now, it will inevitably affect all of our freedom, especially press freedom. When it comes to survivors of human trafficking, we need an opportunity to speak out to a free press. We need whistleblower protection, and we definitely need free speech. We just do. Survivors need it. That's why I'm here today. Yeah. I couldn't look my fellow survivors in the face, the survivors that are gonna walk after me. I couldn't look them in the face and say I did everything that I could do to serve them and know that I did not advocate for Julian Assange when it mattered. This is the beginning, but I'm telling you, it's coming for all of us. It's coming for all of us. We have to fight for our freedom. We have to fight for our right to speak freely. Thank God I'm an American. Oh, woo! It's all we got left. It's all we got left. Are you ready to fight for it? I am. I have a message for the ruling class, the global elites, the CIA, the FBI. Be a hero, quit your job, become a whistleblower. Yeah. But if you do not, I'm hyped today. If you do not, you can tell I get hyped when I walk around. If you do not, if it's a choice between free speech and the United States government, trust and know One's gotta go. If one has to go, it ain't gonna be free speech. I can bet you on that. I can bet you on that one. Yeah. We aren't gonna lose our free speech. I think I get so passionate about freedom because I know what it's like to lose it. And once you lose it and get it back, you don't ever want to lose it again. Yeah. It's really hard to get it back. I was thinking yesterday, and I wasn't going to add this in originally, but I know there's a lot of folks here that have been fighting this fight for a very long time. There are a lot of people that have been fighting for Assange for a very long time. Anyone that's been keeping up with what's been going on, there's been things going on, worldwide today, which have been really incredible to watch. And I had a message for you. As a survivor advocate, the days get long. You grow weary, you get tired, you get worn out. It's stressful. It's like you feel like no one's listening. You feel like there's nothing you can do. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going. Every day you wake up, you're like, what the hell? I gotta keep fighting for this. I see the Assange people is the same way. Thank you. And then on top of all of it, you'll have like Karen 973065 on Twitter tell you, oh, Julian Assange wasn't, he's not a journalist. Yeah, right. Keep going. Please keep going. Because not only are you fighting for Assange, you're fighting for yourself, you're fighting for me, and you're fighting for survivors of human trafficking, some of our world's most vulnerable who need to have a free press and free speech. Thank you so much for letting me come today. Thank you so much for letting me speak. And thank you all for being here so much.
Wow, thank you. Let's give it up for Eliza Blue, everybody. All right, next up we have Dave Decamp. He is a news editor of antiwar.com and a freelance journalist based in Brooklyn, New York, focusing on U.S. foreign policy and war. Please welcome Dave Decamp.
First, I just want to thank all the organizers for putting this together. It's great to see so many people out here for Assange, and so much work has to go into this. And so, when I'm talking to you today, we appear to be on the brink of nuclear war. And I don't like to be an alarmist, but as Dan Cohen mentioned, the President of the United States did just say that the other day. We're facing nuclear Armageddon, the highest chance since the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did we get to this point and forget the lessons of the Cold War? Well, a few things happened, including giving up on the peace dividend after the collapse of the Soviet Union, using the unipolar moment to pick on and destroy smaller countries, responding to 9/11 by killing millions of people that had nothing to do with it. They made an enemy out of Russia when there was absolutely no reason to do so. And that's not me, that's George Kennan who said that. Now we're seeing a similar situation unfold with China, making war over Taiwan more likely. Instead of dismantling their nuclear weapons, they tore up arms control treaties and created a plan to spend $1.5 trillion to modernize the nuclear triad. And they have to justify that somehow. So how could we let this happen? And the reason why is because we don't have more people like Julian Assange. And for exposing the truth and the deep-seated corruption that led us to this point, he's been vilified and tortured and kept away from his family. And why did they do that? Again, if there were more WikiLeaks and more people like Assange, we could find out the truth of what's going on, as Dan Cohen mentioned, with the war in Ukraine. There's strong evidence that the Biden administration wanted to prolong this war, that they sent Boris Johnson over there in April to kill a peace deal. But we don't know for sure. What we need right now is a WikiLeaks-style cable email dump to see what they've been saying to each other. Because that is going to reveal that they don't care about Ukrainians. They don't care about democracy or whatever they say. They want to weaken Russia, and they want to line the pockets of Lloyd Austin's buddies at Raytheon. That's what this is all about. So this is why we need more people like Julian Assange. And let me be absolutely clear, Julian Assange is a journalist. He has done no crimes, he has only exposed them. And the reason why this is so important, if he is prosecuted under the Espionage Act, which was passed during World War I to crush dissent. It will set the most dangerous precedent. Anybody who calls himself a journalist or any kind of media, or even if you just put information out into the world, this could set a precedent that if you publish something, tell somebody something that the government doesn't like, they could put you away for life. So that's why I'm here today, because this is not just about the First Amendment. This is a freedom issue. This is about liberty, what little liberty we have left. So for peace and our time, we need our government, the U.S. empire, to free Julian Assange. And that's what we should all be screaming from the rooftops. But instead, there's no mainstream journalists here. So it's up to us to get the word out to everybody. Thank you. Free Assange.
Everybody give it up for Dave Decamp. Okay, really quick housekeeping note. If you are in independent media, because, corporate media is not here, but if you are in independent media, first of all, thank you for showing up. Second of all, if you would like an interview with any of our speakers and they're available, we have a tent set up right down there. You can go and register with Suzanne, and she can get you set up with any of our speakers. So just so you know, go through Suzanne. Okay, coming up next, we have Esther Evram, who is an author, multidisciplinary artist, and independent journalist who produces and hosts On the Ground, Voices of Resistance from the nation's capital, on podcast and more than 25 stations on the Pacifica Radio Network. Everybody give it up for Esther Evram.
Evram. It's so good to be here today to stand up for a journalist and to stand up for Julian Assange. And I say that because so many people in corporate media will say Julian Assange is not a journalist. And I say back to them, you're not a journalist. And so I want the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bushes, and Mike Pompeo to know that you may try to silence Julian Assange, but the thing about facts is that facts don't die. They don't die. They don't change. They don't become unfacts. They don't become untrue. Facts never become false. So like even in the current psyop about Ukraine, you may try to sell lies. You may try to erase the history of Stepan Bandera. You may try to take Victoria Nuland's video off of YouTube. And I hope people have downloaded that, by the way, keeping it safe. And you may try to erase the history of garment workers in Haiti who were denied a minimum wage under Hillary Clinton when she was over at the State Department. But the thing is that the fact that that happened, it doesn't die. And the other thing is that facts come back to bite. So those same garment workers in Haiti are still fighting. And they're joining with other Haitians who insist on not being enslaved under the imperialist order. They insist on having energy that they were receiving from Venezuela. They insist on all these things, and they insist on not being erased from history. I keep thinking, when I was coming over here, I was thinking that WikiLeaks was and is an antidote for this kind of imperialist psychosis that thinks that we will forget that the millions of people killed in Vietnam or all these wars, that the people who have been tortured, that the people who are been starved like they're being starved right now in Afghanistan because we've stolen their money, that they think that all of these things will disappear. And I think it's a type of psychosis, and WikiLeaks was and is an antidote for that. So the work of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks lives on and will live on no matter what the 1%'s instinct for cruelty and injustice is. I keep thinking that the work of WikiLeaks is kind of like an extension of these great scholarly works that I've been privileged to read, like How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, because what WikiLeaks shows through its investigations is how it's still being underdeveloped by the imperialist order, by the U.S. empire. And so we can take this information to fight back. And that's the final thing I want to say is that Mike Pompeo, a whole group of cannibal imperialists, they aren't afraid and angry because WikiLeaks makes them look bad. They're afraid and angry because WikiLeaks gives us information to fight back. It gives people the information they need to fight back. In Haiti, in the United States, in Afghanistan, in Iraq and Syria. And so that's why we're here today, to let the imperialists and all their minions and corporate media know that the people will keep fighting back and that facts don't die. Free Julian Assange. All power to the people.
Free Assange, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Esther Evram. Evram. I knew that. Oh, all right. Well, next, I am very, very excited to have a wonderful musical treat with our friend Lucy and Chicana. And you have some friends with you? They're still working. That figures. Everybody's got to pay the rent. Okay. Well, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you because I hear you have some fun for us.
I invited my friend from Chile, Karen Andrea Morales Chacana, better known as Chacana with the Teatro de la Bolsa, to join me because 1973 in Chile was an eye-opener for me. I said, wow, these people will do the same thing to white people that they've been doing to black people in this country. And so we are members of the Black Workers Center Chorus. And our job is not for you to listen to us, but to get you to sing with us. And we do it in at least English and Spanish. So can everybody say Libera? Libera. Assange. Assange. No nos moverán. No nos moverán. Oh, y'all look good. Libera Assange, no nos moverán. Libera Assange, no nos moverán. Como un árbol firme, firme junto al río, no nos moverán. Freedom for Assange, freedom for Assange. We shall not be moved. Freedom for Assange. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be. Libera Assange. Libera Assange. No nos moverán. Libera Assange. No nos moverán como un árbol firme, firme junto al río. No nos moverán. Peltier, libera Peltier. No nos moverán. Libera Peltier. No nos moverán como un árbol firme, firme junto al río. No nos moverán. Free Peltier, free Peltier, we shall not be moved. Free Peltier, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. Libera Mumia, libera Mumia. No nos moverán, libera Mumia, no nos moverán como un árbol firme, firme
not be moved. Free Assange, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved.
Just like a tree,
just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Lucy's based here in DC, so I hope you all see her often. All right, next up, we have Sabrina Salvati. She is an activist, former educator, and host of the Savvy Sabs podcast, and co-host of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. Please give a warm welcome for Sabrina Salvati.
Oh dear. Greetings. I'm a little short here, but here we go. First and foremost, big shout out to Misty for putting this together. All the Assange activists as well. It's not every day I get to be in DC, but so excited to see all you guys. When I studied journalism in undergrad, my professors told me that journalism was about reporting the facts. What they did not tell me was that there are certain agencies that do not want some facts or truths reported. Sometimes that decision lies in the hands of an editor, a publisher, a platform, or the United States government. Julian Assange is currently imprisoned for reporting the facts, for revealing harsh truths about U.S. war crimes. He's being tortured for doing his job. Some government officials, like John Bolton, have called Julian a criminal. I disagree. Journalism should not be a crime. But I would ask John Bolton, where is that same outrage for the real criminals? Where is that same outrage for the clients of Jeffrey Epstein? Where is that same outrage for the Wall Street bankers that stole people's homes during the housing crisis? Those are the real criminals, and they walk among us freely. Independent journalists like Julian are critical and necessary because media outlets such as CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC spread lies every day to the American people. They regurgitate the same narrative from the State Department, the narrative that the U.S. government has decided is acceptable. If commentators like Anderson Cooper told the truth, the real truth, would he still be employed at CNN? Make sure I got a page. If you're wondering why you should care about what's happening to Julian, if you value free speech or free press, then you should be very concerned about his ordeal. Over the past year, I've watched independent journalists and commentators struggle with censorship on various platforms. I've seen them have their work deleted, sometimes work that was published years ago. I've seen journalists demonetized and deplatformed, some of whom I know personally, and I know they do good work. I've seen Wikipedia pages smearing anti-war voices. And speaking of war, if you discuss Russia and Ukraine differently than mainstream media, you will also be censored or deplatformed. That's right. The same goes for Israel and Palestine, Syria, and Yemen. censorship did not start with Julian Assange, and he is not alone. We must also mention voices like Daniel Hale and Mumia Jamal. But we must also ask our representatives in DC, where do they stand on this issue? In particular, the progressive members in Congress. With the exception of Ilhan Omar, where does the squad stand on Julian Assange and the issue of free speech? Why are they silent on this issue? If they're not willing to stand up for free speech, then they will vote accordingly. And we may not have independent media, the same media that gave them a platform when CNN would not. The same media that got them elected. So this time, it's Julian Assange. Next time, it could be someone else if we don't protect free speech. Next time, it could be you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Give it up for Sabi Sabs. Amazing independent journalist. Please go support her work. Okay, coming up next we have Scott Ritter, who is a former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, served in the Soviet Union as an inspector implementing the INF treaty, and served as a chief weapons inspector with the UN in Iraq. Currently writes on issues pertaining to international security, military affairs, Russia, and the Middle East, as well as arms control and non-proliferation. Everybody give it up for Scott Ritter.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege to be out here today to speak with you. It's also an honor and privilege to stand here underneath the flag of the United States of America. I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's an oath I took seriously, and I know there's many in the audience today who have taken the same oath, and I know there's some people out here who are watching us who have taken the same oath. Thank you for your service. But the important thing about that oath is what it stands for. It doesn't stand for, I will defend the President of the United States no matter what. It stands for, I will defend the Constitution. I will uphold and defend the Constitution, and the First Amendment of that Constitution is freedom of speech. In June of 1971, lawyers from this building argued a case before the United States Supreme Court. That case was the United States versus the New York Times. The Supreme Court came back with a 6-3 opinion in favor of free speech. What they said at the time is that the First Amendment doesn't allow the government to suppress the press, but the press to suppress the government. That the purpose of free speech is so that the people can hold their government accountable for the crimes and the misdeeds they do, that the government can never hide behind a shroud of secrecy and cite secrecy as a defense against, or as a way of suppressing free speech. It was a very important decision. One that if journalists today were half of what they were 50 years ago, they'd be here in overwhelming numbers supporting this very cause. 1 month after the Supreme Court passed or voted 6-3 for this opinion, a child was born. His name was Julian Assange. 1971. Here we are today talking about free speech, and we're talking about Julian Assange in the same breath. Because, ladies and gentlemen, he is the face of free speech. He is that which defines the struggle we should all be united in. Standing up for our right to say what we want, when we want, to whom we want. Now, unfortunately, Julian Assange may be extradited to our country. I hope it doesn't come to that. But if he does, I demand that the U.S. courts pay attention to the words written in the opinion of United States versus the New York Times, where the Supreme Court chided the lower courts and said, you should never have even heard oral arguments on this, that you can never allow the government to use secrecy as an excuse to suppress free speech. What has Julian Assange given us? Julian Assange has done nothing more than that which we demand of everybody who claims to be a journalist. That is, to find the facts, report the facts, and turn them over to the people so they can judge the facts and hold people accountable for the facts. He's exposed war crimes. He's exposed the lies of the U.S. government. And again, I didn't take an oath to serve the U.S. government. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, embarrass the U.S. government when it needs to be embarrassed, hold our elected representatives accountable for what they do in our name. It's a shame, but I'm proud of it, that a foreigner has to serve as a better example of defending American values than many American journalists. So we gather here under this flag. This flag is supposed to stand for something. I wore this flag proudly on my shoulder when I served in the Marine Corps. But this flag stands for the defense of truth. And I'm telling you right now, Department of Justice, if you dare hold Julian accountable for a violation of the law that did not occur, then take this flag down and hoist the Jolly Roger, because piracy of American democracy has taken place. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Give it up for Scott Ritter, everybody. Wow. Thank you so much. All right, well, our next speaker needs no introduction. She is the most colorful person at every protest. She has been the strongest anti-war advocate that I have known in my lifetime, and the only reason that I'm here today is because my father was able to make it home from Vietnam. So please give it up for Medea Benjamin.
Well, it's a little bit cold out here, but it warms my heart to see all of you, because I've been to so many Julian Assange protests, and in a lot of them, there's just like 20 of us, right? So it's really great. And I don't know, raise your hand if you saw any of the footage that came out from London today. Wasn't that amazing? Amazing. There were so many people. It was so beautiful. So you organizers are extraordinary, because you're bringing together people who normally don't come together. I see people I don't know, and that's really nice. And I also feel like all of these speakers have been so fabulous and brought in so many of the different issues that bring us out here today. And one issue is how many times we are lied to by our own government, over and over and over again. We were lied to for 20 damn years every day about the war in Afghanistan and how victory was around the corner. We were lied to every day for 20 years about the war in Iraq, what the U.S. was doing there, how well we were received by the Iraqis when the statue of Saddam Hussein came down. We were lied to about the invasion of Libya. We were lied to about the U.S. role in Syria. We were lied to about the U.S. role in the coup in Ukraine and what the U.S. is doing right now to try to keep that war going. We are constantly lied to by our government. And that is why truth is so essential to us. The truth. What does that say? I don't even know. Free Julian Assange, right? That is why the work of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange was so critical when we were trying to learn what the hell it was that our government was doing. And one of the only ways we could find out was reading what WikiLeaks gave to us, those truths, so that we could do our job, like Tig was trying to do right there, which is to get up and protest, get up and shout, get up and say no to the warmongers who run our country, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. They're both war parties, and we sure are seeing it today. Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to the organizers, thank you for everyone here, and thank you to Julian Assange, and that we will keep working and keep fighting and keep building until Julian Assange is here with us as a free man. Thank you.
Everybody give it up for Medea Benjamin. I love somebody who calls out a warmonger to their face, and she's known for that, so I love her. Okay. Coming up next is somebody I hold dear in my heart, Randy Credico. Randy is a comedian, a radio host. He's the former director of the William Moses Kunstler Fund for Racial Justice. As an activist, he almost single-handedly saw the harsh Rockefeller drug laws dismantled and brought national attention to Tollia, Texas, the site of one of the worst miscarriages of justice in history. And thanks to his radio show, which just celebrated its 5-year anniversary in April, Live on the Fly, Assange Countdown to Freedom, the entire world has been given a comprehensive record on what is hailed as the political trial of the century. He's dedicated 175 shows in 6 years to Julian Assange. He's absolutely tireless. He's also been, there's a billboard truck right there. Randy has been in the streets of DC for the past 2 months, every single day with the billboard trucks. He is my friend. He is amazing. He is Randy Credico.
Thank you. How about a big hand of applause for Misty and her crew for this wonderful gathering today. It really is nice. This is the biggest one. Chuck and I were here last August out in front, and there were only 3 people there. We said, August is a good time to do this, 3 days in a row. So we started the billboard truck August 8th. We've been doing it for 60 days. There are 2 of them out there now. Once in a while you can turn to the left and you will see these billboard trucks. And what I've learned, by the way, I am Randy and I'm an alcoholic. Oh, that's the wrong meeting. That's later on. 6 o'clock meeting, right. Over there, I'll be there. All right, DuPont Plaza. All right, we've been here for the last 2 months, and we're going to be going on for at least another month and a half, courtesy of Ben Cohen, who has just helped finance us going forward. And what I've learned, I was just talking to Chris Hedges, is that we've been on the streets, we've been talking to people for the last 2 months, is that this is going to be a very tough road to hoe going forward, because there's a lot of apathy and a lot of antipathy towards Julian Assange here in DC. So it's going to be difficult. We're up against a mammoth force out there. It is going to, we got to continue being out there every single day. This is so important. People got to know how important this is. We have to be unified. We have to act as one and inform other people. We got to inform other people. Bill Kunstler said May 10th, 1970, after the slaughter at Kent State, he said the biggest problem, the biggest mistake that the German people made was they just didn't understand the threat of the boots until the boots were at the front door. So we've got to know that this right here, this case here of Julian Assange, if he goes, what goes next? The Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights goes. What goes next? What's left of this democracy, this fragile ersatz democracy, it's gone after that. And then the boots will be at our door. So we have to act together. I don't care, as Bill Kunstler said back then, if you're a weatherman or with the ACLU, we must all act together, focus, and continue fighting, organizing, get on the streets, because this is the fight of our life. We can do it. We can do it. It has been done before. Toussaint Louverture did it. Garibaldi with 1,000 men. conquered or liberated Sicily and then Naples. We can do this if we stay together, organize, and act as one. So there are a lot of speakers. There's another 85 speakers. So the final speaker is slated at 7:30 tomorrow night. So don't miss it. No, we got some great speakers left. I want to thank you once again, the local people came down from New York for all of the work. Let's just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Randy Credico, everybody. Woo! All right, it's getting crazy with the podium here. Okay, our next speaker needs also no introduction. He is the co-founder of your favorite ice cream, Ben & Jerry's. President of the People Power Initiatives, which helps runs the National Assange Defense Campaign in partnership with the Courage Foundation. Everybody, let's give it a warm two-scoop welcome for Mr. Ben Cohen.
Thank you. Must be somewhere good today. Well done. There is ice cream over there. You know, when I met with Julian at the Ecuadorian embassy, what struck me was his intelligence, his compassion, and his belief in the power of truth as an antidote to being awash in a world of lies. As Julian said, if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth. But now, according to the U.S. government, publishing the truth has become a crime. As the UN Raconteur on Torture has said, a murderous system is being created before our very eyes. They are literally killing the messenger. 3 years in solitary, and he hasn't been convicted of anything that he's been indicted for. Compare that with how they treat insurrectionists. Here's the thing. There's no democracy without freedom of the press, because it's only a free press that can hold government accountable. That's right. And there's no freedom of the press without a free Assange. Obama understood that and refused to indict him. Trump reversed that decision, and now Biden is following in Trump's footsteps. As long as Assange is under indictment for publishing the truth, freedom of the press is just some meaningless, highfalutin words. The truths he published reveal that the U.S. military lies to the people, the press, and the government. The U.S. government permits our military to commit war crimes, and the CIA lies to Congress. None of this can be denied because Assange published the actual source documents. Here's what Biden and the DOJ are really saying by prosecuting Assange. They say, if the U.S. government wants to lie, by God, we're gonna lie. If we want to cover things up, we're gonna cover them up. If we want to hide the truth, we're gonna hide the truth. And we're not gonna let some little pipsqueak publisher get in our way. We will smear his name, we will prosecute him, we will torture him. Let this be a lesson to any journalist, anywhere in the world, who dares to publish truths that we don't want people to know, regardless of whether you're a U.S. citizen or not. We will smite you down. We will use the full power and influence of the United States throughout the world to make your life a living hell. That's the truth. And here's another lie. Speaking on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day, President Biden proclaimed at least 360 people worldwide are currently imprisoned for their work in journalism. We all stand in solidarity with these journalists.
Shame.
For as Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1786, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. Biden failed to mention that one of those imprisoned journalists is Julian Assange. Let's get out there, drop the charges, free Julian.
Everybody give it up for Ben Cohen. Hey, since he's right there, we already talked about the billboard truck with Randy, who's done an amazing job. James is in the truck right there. James is a small business owner here in DC. He runs DC Billboard, mobile billboards. Give it up for James. We work with him every time we come to DC, and he is fantastic. So shout out to James. And he's been stuck with Randy for 2 months. I mean, really. All right, coming up next, we have Marsha Coleman Adebayo, who won a historic lawsuit against the EPA, and she ushered in the No Fear bill through Congress, and the No Fear Act was signed into law. She's founder of the No Fear Coalition that fights for increased legislative protections for federal employees. She's the president of the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition and is leading the fight to preserve and prevent further desecration of that cemetery. Everybody give it up for Marsha Coleman Adebayo. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people.
I bring you greetings from the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. On Thursday, just as FYI, we were actually at the Maryland Court of Special Appeals to stop the Housing Opportunities Commission from selling the bodies of African people to a private developer.
Shame.
The lawsuit that we brought before the court is exposing that Montgomery County was engaged in genocide for over 400 years, and in the last 6 years has actively engaged in deprived acts to destroy human remains and other criminal evidence of the genocide. We ask you to please, please pay attention to this issue. In the next couple of weeks, the Court of Appeal will rule on whether black bodies can be sold to private or public enterprises without the knowledge of the families or the court. In other words, the court is reconsidering the 1857 Supreme Court decision of Sanford versus Dred Scott. Fundamentally, the court is deciding whether black people have any rights that whites are bound to respect. But today, I am here as an EPA whistleblower and to stand in solidarity with Julian Assange and other whistleblowers. And I also think it's important for me to amplify the contribution of black whistleblowers who to a large extent have been ignored and their contributions forgotten.
That's right.
As many of you may know, this year marks the 20th anniversary of the No Fear Act. No Fear stands for the Federal Employees Anti-Discrimination and Retaliation Act of 2002. And this law grew out of my lawsuit against the EPA and became the first civil rights and whistleblower law of the 21st century. What a lot of people do not know is how much sacrifice went into the passage of the No Fear Act. It took us about 5 years to pass this whistleblower law, and we also suffered many martyrs in the process. And I would like to amplify the names of Patricia Lawson and Lillian Peasant, very brave whistleblowers. Both of these women were literally taken out by the brutal and violent retaliation at the Environmental Protection Agency. One died at her EPA desk, and the other died on her way to work at the EPA. We also experienced an incarceration John Gran, an incredible whistleblower who also was exposed to solitary confinement during his imprisonment and so many firings that I can't even count, including my own. So as a national security whistleblower, the retaliation is horrific, and you realize that your life and that of your family is in danger all the time. Whistleblowing is not for the faint of heart. So I salute my fellow whistleblower, Julian Assange, and thank the organizers of this rally for bringing us all together. It takes ground troops and militant and consistent public actions to stop the United States government's relentless and violent attacks on this courageous man. But there is no doubt that Julian has been used to create the chilling effect throughout the world, a warning against anyone considering blowing the whistle. His bravery has been met with the most brutal and vile retaliation by the United States government. Every whistleblower knows that they could have suffered the same fate. So I'd like to end by quoting my friend and mentor, Noam Chomsky, about Julian Assange. Noam wrote, "He has been subjected to years of torture, false charges, now the threat of extradition, in which he will face a possible lifetime of imprisonment, and the press is not coming to his defense, with few exceptions. It's the voices in the street which can end this tragedy of the Assange torture and prosecution, like everything else. Like the Civil Rights Movement, like the Social Democratic Initiative in the 1930s, the New Deal measures, like the anti-war movement, like the women's movement, everything is always the same answer. It's the street. It's the street. And it's the activism of individuals coming together, working against often very severe odds, but for a cause that is obligatory. In the current case, necessary for survival. In Assange's case, necessary to save an individual from unspeakable torture for the crime of performing the most honorable work of a journalist. Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Ashe.
Thank you so much, Martha. Somebody who has been to the EPA many, many, many times. They don't care or listen to us. And we know that our three-letter agencies are corrupt. So thank you so much for your sacrifices. I can't say it enough. Next, I would like to introduce Matthew Ho. He is a disabled Marine combat veteran. In 2009, he resigned his position with the State Department in Afghanistan in protest of the escalation of the war. He is a candidate with the Green Party to represent North Carolina in the U.S. Senate in 2022. Please give a warm welcome to Matthew Ho.
Thank you, and thank you for the organizers of this. Thank you for all of you who've come out here. This is, Medea had said, it's good for the heart. This is good for the soul. I would like to first start by asking if we take a moment for Julian, his family, and all those we have killed in war, who, if not for Julian and WikiLeaks, they would have been murdered without name or voice. So if we could take a moment, please, for them. Thank you. The first time I was asked to speak about Julian was when the Apache gunship murder video came out. It was myself and another veteran on television were asked to speak about that. And we sat there, and both of our responses were, my God, what did you think we were doing over there? What Julian and WikiLeaks has done for millions of people who otherwise would have been killed without voice, without name, without dignity, That is why he is in Belmarsh. That is why they want to bring him here. That is why they want to murder him. I have seen mothers with their dead children, their dead sons, their dead daughters, whose cries are in Arabic, Pashto, Dari, English. It doesn't matter. They are the same. They are our brothers and sisters. And without Julian and without WikiLeaks, those people would have had no voice. They would have no names. There would be no dignity for them at all. The murder that this country has committed over and over again in
countless cities, in countless villages across the globe has continued for decades. And without Julian, without WikiLeaks, those men and women and their families would have been lost to history. So thank you. Hear me? Okay. What has occurred to those people in countless countries, unnameable cities and villages, millions who have been devastated, brought down, put into the dirt by the American war machine. Without WikiLeaks, without Julian, they would be unknown. We can never forget them. We will never forget them. We will never let that go, this murder go, without accountability. Just as everyone here today is not letting the prosecution and the persecution of Julian go. I want to thank everyone who is here. Thank everyone for what they're doing. This will not end. And if they dare bring Julian here to the United States, we will meet him and we will meet them and we will set him free. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. This will, there you go. You're allowed to come in.
You're fine. It's probably, I'm done. Okay, I'm used to this. This is my name. I'm used to a megaphone. Okay, so everybody give it up for Matthew Ho. All right, coming up next is another one of my favorite independent journalists. He's an author, a journalist, currently the editor-in-chief of Consortium News. If you know me, you know I'm really hard on media in terms of covering Julian Assange. Consortium News is like the only outlet who covers it enough. They do an amazing job. And he was a UN correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, the Boston Globe, the Sunday Times of London. Loria began his professional work as a 19-year-old stringer for the New York Times, and everybody give it up for Mr. Joe Loria.
Give him the horn.
Thank you very much. Is that better?
Yeah.
Well, that was an amazing scene to see that yellow ribbon going around this building. It's fabulous. Thank everybody for being here. I thank all of the organizers from the people who brought the coffee, to Misty, to Raw Media for providing a live stream free, and to these incredibly strong people who've been standing here holding this sign, chucking everybody. Yeah. Okay, I have a very brief letter that I've written to Merrick Garland, rather, the Attorney General of the United States. Dear Mr. Garland, the case of Julian Assange goes to the core of how we define ourselves in the United States and in the West. Are we democracies that uphold the right to criticize government or growing autocracies that crush dissent. Assange exposed the wrongdoing of U.S. government officials and the military. That's the job journalists are supposed to do in a democracy. I worked for decades in the establishment media. I saw too many people there pretending at the job because of the status they thought it brought them. They lived vicariously through the powerful people they covered, ignoring the different kind of power that journalism wields to hold the powerful to account. That's the power Julian Assange exercised. There are cynics in government and in the media, consciously knowing that what they're doing is wrong, but they don't care because it expands U.S. interests and their own. They are not deluded by exceptionalist talk. They understand power. Mr. Garland, you don't seem deluded. Either you know that what you're doing to Julian Assange is wrong and you don't care because it serves power, or you know it's wrong and you're conflicted. If it's the latter, you have a generational opportunity to literally save a significant part of American democracy and go down as an historic champion of press freedom, because it will take such an heroic act to save a hero like Julian Assange. Which is it going to be, Mr. Garland?
All right, how's everybody doing out there? You know, we are most comfortable with a microphone in our hands and being loud and in the streets. And so I hope all of you that are here today can get out more often, because a few of us is not enough. We need all of us in the streets. Yes. So I would like to introduce our next speaker, John Kiriakou. Yeah. Journalist, author, former intelligence officer. He has worked as an analyst and case officer with the CIA. After leaving the CIA, he revealed on ABC News that waterboarding, a method of torture, was used in intense surveillance, and the U.S. government persecuted him. He was the 6th whistleblower to be indicted by the Obama administration under the Espionage Act, a law meant to punish spies, not whistleblowers. Please give a warm welcome for John Kiriakou.
Thanks, everybody. Believe it or not, this is the first time in my life I've ever used a megaphone. 58 years. So, I was on my way over here today, and I was driving, I was on my way over here today, and I saw a sign that said, "Talking dog for sale, $20. I was intrigued, so I pulled over and went and knocked on the guy's door. I said, "I saw your sign, you have a talking dog for $20. Can I see it?" He said, "Sure." He takes me in to the house, and there's a dog there. I said, "Hello." The dog says, "Hello." I said, "My God, the dog actually talks." I said, "Well, tell me about yourself." The dog says, "I used to work for the CIA. They would send me into meetings, like with Bin Laden and stuff." I said, "I used to work for the CIA too." I said, "I never came close to Bin Laden. Tell me more." He said, "I would go into these meetings, Bin Laden, Putin, Kim Jong-un, and then I would go back to CIA and I would report what they told me." I said, "That's amazing. I gotta buy this dog." I said to the guy, "I'd like to buy the dog." He says, "Well, it's $20. I said, "Well, why is it so cheap?" And he says, "That dog's a liar. He's never done any of that stuff." But this is a theme, because everybody at the CIA is a liar. Everybody. The CIA told us that there was no torture program. That was a lie. The CIA told us that there was no archipelago of secret prisons all around the world. That was a lie. They told us that there was no international rendition, kidnapping program, where we go overseas and just snatch people off the streets or out of their homes. That was a lie. The CIA tells us today, in 2022, that they cannot even confirm the existence of a drone program. They're lying. Now, Mike Pompeo said on the campaign trail a couple of weeks ago that if and when Julian Assange is extradited to the Eastern District of Virginia, he will receive a fair trial. That's a lie. A fair trial is impossible for a bunch of reasons. Now, what Mike Pompeo didn't talk about is that he actively sought to murder Julian Assange, that he actively sought to kidnap Julian Assange and bring him surreptitiously back to the United States, probably to be killed. He didn't tell us that the CIA bugged the Ecuadorian embassy for audio and video so that they could spy on Julian Assange meeting with his attorneys and use the information against him in the United States. We can't believe anything that they say because they lie about everything. And they're clear about it. Again, Mike Pompeo was happy to go on TV and with a chuckle said, "We lie, we steal, we cheat." Isn't it great to be an American? So it's up to us to be there for Julian Assange. God forbid that he is indeed extradited to the United States. A crowd like this has to be in front of that courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. We have to be there every day doing our part. Thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to see so many friends and new friends. Hello and welcome to the FBI agents in the crowd today. Maybe you'll learn something from us, but we hope to see you there.
Okay, do we work? Yay! Okay, excellent. All right, everybody give it up one more time for John Kiriakou. Amazing courage and bravery. We need more John Kiriakous in the world. Okay, coming up next is yet another one of my favorite independent journalists, and this one is incredibly important to this cause because Kevin Gosztola has been on this case since day one, and in fact covered Chelsea Manning's case as well, and is one of the foremost journalists on all things whistleblowers and dissent. He's an American journalist, managing editor of Shadowproof. Please go follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. He also writes for The Dissenter. He's known for his work on whistleblowers, as I mentioned, and civil liberties cases, and has covered the court-martial of Chelsea Manning, the case of John Kiriakou, and the extradition of Julian Assange. Everybody give it up for Kevin Gosztola.
All right, everyone. Quite the marathon of speakers, and now I'm up here to give you a recap of everything that you've already heard for the last 2 hours. No, you know, I made this trip regularly when Chelsea was on trial and she was going through her court-martial. I was one of like 5 journalists that was traveling, which was bizarre because there are quite a number of journalists that live in New York and DC, and they can make this trip fairly easily compared to what anybody who lives in Chicago or on the West Coast might have to go through in order to do this regularly. We've had quite a conversation, a really good dialogue today about journalism and the failure of journalism and what it means to be a journalist, and it's quite clear to all of us that Julian Assange is a journalist. And that's the focus of a book I've been working on for the last 8 to 10 months called Guilty of Journalism, that's coming out in February. And I've spent quite a long time trying to prepare a guidebook in the eventual possibility that we don't want to be a possibility that Julian Assange is here in the United States in 2023 or 2024. But that's why we're all here today. We are here to prevent it. And we're here today because Stella Assange organized this amazing show of support in London that far surpassed anything we could have imagined. Somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 people potentially that came out in London, of all places. And then people around the world said, that's not going to be the only event. And that was inspirational to me. That got me to buy an airline ticket and come out here to be part of this event, to join with you with this group. And Julian Assange is a journalist. He's not a source. The New York Times always likes to pretend like he's a source so that they do not have to take responsibility for what he did, so that they do not have to show solidarity with him, so that they don't have to treat him like a partner. Bullshit. And Holger Stark of Der Spiegel is absolutely right that the 5 media outlets, the main corporate or establishment news outlets that worked with WikiLeaks, should put out an appeal that says free Assange, that they should unite together, and that would be hugely powerful. But if they're not going to do that, then it falls on us in order to free Julian Assange. It falls on us to have moments of confrontation, not violent. We don't need to intimidate or harass anybody, but it falls on us to find ways that we can create moments that are capable of shaming people like Antony Blinken, like Mike Pompeo, like Merrick Garland, and others who might do events out in public. The kind of thing that you all know what to do because you're seasoned activists and you've been doing this for a very long time and you're here and you're dearly committed to this cause. You have to create these opportunities like what Abby Martin did with the people who were at the Summit of the Americas to challenge this empire and what they were doing. You have to create those moments. You know, she stood up for Shireen Abu Akleh and was making a big point about whose lives are valued and whose lives are not valued by this country. And that's what we have to do. And just to give you some specifics, the last thing I want to leave you with is I didn't know that any polling agency had any interest in Julian Assange anymore. But within the last months, Morning Consult actually did a poll on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and asked people what they know and what they remember. And I have bad news for you. Nearly half of US adults that were polled said they did not know who Julian Assange was as a person. Not even the propaganda that has been fed to them by the media. They couldn't even regurgitate that. They didn't know who Julian Assange was. And when they were asked about the publications in which he's being prosecuted for publishing, the Afghan war logs, the Iraq war logs, they didn't know. They didn't know what those publications. Nearly 60% of people in London or the UK, in the United States, and in Australia, which has actually made this an issue. The Australians get a lot of credit because they've turned it into a political issue in which their politicians actually have to take sides. Well, that makes sense because he's an Australian citizen. But he's coming to this country, and we ought to make him a bigger political issue here in this country because that's the only way that it's going to become a thing in which he gets freed. And finally, specifically, we should start to come up with, whenever we have these conversations, specifics about what the releases revealed and, to us, what we find to be the most important. So off the top of my head, I'm going to give you 3 revelations that came from WikiLeaks that stick with me, and then I'm out of here. So, the fact that they were going to carve up the Arctic Circle between the powers of the world and take advantage of climate change and use that moment not to reverse it, but to go through and find more ways to extract the natural resources that would now be exposed because of the melting of the ice cap. Well, there's one. We also know that relevant to everything that should be on our mind, which is the potential for nuclear Armageddon, we also know that the current CIA director, Bill Burns, was quite aware of what it meant to Russia to be under NATO encirclement. And then finally, because in my profession we've seen quite a moment in which there was censorship brought to bear against a colleague of mine who stood up for Rashida Tlaib for speaking up about Israeli apartheid. Let me tell you something that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks published that Chelsea Manning provided to them. They published a critical cable that said that the US government was well aware that Israel was proud to bring Gaza to the brink of collapse in its economy, and that was the goal. That was the way they were going to keep them incapable of fighting back and having any liberation. So I think it's important that we put specifics to this when we talk about why Julian Assange should be freed. And I also want to thank the organizers for inviting me and having me come out here and join all of you. And it's so great to see everyone. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Give it up for Kevin Gostola, everybody. All right, I have a couple housekeeping announcements. First of all, if you would like to get active and find out more information about Julian Assange's case, you can sign up over there at the information table with our New York for Assange representative, Marty. See the hands in the air. Please go sign up. Keep on top of this case because your tax dollars are funding these atrocities across this globe. They are responsible for what is happening to Julian Assange. So please do something about it today. We also are having a little after party. Please welcome to join us over at Busboys and Poets at 4 to 6:30 at 450K. We'd love to have you and get to know all of you a little bit more, especially all of you who are new here or this is your first time, because this is really important solidarity building. And we just want to send our love to everybody around the world, everybody who did anything in social media, everybody who did any letters to the editors, any local action that you have been a part of across the globe. You are doing the right thing and we commend you. So thank you. And next, without further ado, we are going to have our final speaker of the afternoon. That is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist named Chris Hedges. He has worked as a foreign correspondent in the Middle East and the Balkans for the New York Times. He is a prolific writer of essays and numerous books and has hosted the Emmy Award-nominated show On Contact. He has taught at New York, Princeton, and Columbia universities, as well as the New Jersey prison system since 2013, which is the most honored work. In Hedges versus Obama, Chris and Noam Chomsky and Daniel Ellsberg sued members of the government after the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. It was signed into law. They won, but it was appealed by Obama and overturned. Most recently, Chris was invited by Julian and Stella Assange to be an official witness at their wedding in Belmarsh Prison. But authorities rejected that plan, claiming his profession as a journalist presented a danger. Give me a break. Please give a really, really warm welcome to Chris Hedges.
Thank you for coming. Merrick Garland and those who work in the Department of Justice are the puppets, not the puppet masters. They are the facade, the fiction, that the long-standing persecution of Julian Assange has something to do with justice. Like the High Court in London, they carry out an elaborate judicial pantomime. They debate arcane legal nuances to distract from the Dickensian farce where a man who has not committed a crime, who is not a U.S. citizen, can be extradited under the Espionage Act and sentenced to life in prison for the most courageous and consequential journalism of our generation. The engine driving the lynching of Julian is not here on Pennsylvania Avenue. It is in Langley, Virginia, located at a complex we will never be allowed to surround, the Central Intelligence Agency. It is driven by a secretive interstate, one where we do not count, in the mad pursuit of empire and ruthless exploitation. Because the machine of this modern Leviathan was exposed by Julian and WikiLeaks, the machine demands revenge. The United States has undergone a corporate coup d'etat in slow motion. It is no longer a functioning democracy. The real centers of power in the corporate, military, and national security sectors were humiliated and embarrassed by WikiLeaks. Their war crimes, lies, conspiracies to crush the democratic aspirations of the vulnerable and the poor, and rampant corruption here and around the globe were laid bare in troves of leaked documents. We cannot fight on behalf of Julian unless we are clear about who we are fighting against. It is far worse than a corrupt judiciary. The global billionaire class who have orchestrated a social inequality rivaled by pharaonic Egypt has internally seized all of the levers of power and made us the most spied upon, monitored, watched, and photographed population in human history. When the government watches you 24 hours a day, you cannot use the word liberty. This is the relationship between a master and a slave. Julian was long a target, of course. When WikiLeaks published the documents known as Vault 7, which exposed the hacking tools the CIA uses to monitor our phones, televisions, and even cars, he and journalism itself was condemned to crucifixion. The object is to shut down any investigation into the inner workings of power that might hold the ruling class accountable for its crimes, eradicate public opinion, and replace it with a cant fed to the mob. I spent 2 decades as a foreign correspondent on the outer reaches of empire in Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, and the Balkans. I am acutely aware of the savagery of empire, how the brutal tools of repression are first tested on those Franz Fanon called the wretched of the earth. Wholesale surveillance, torture, coups, black sites, black propaganda, militarized police, militarized drones, assassinations, wars. Once perfected on people of color overseas, these tools migrate back to the homeland. By hollowing out our country from the inside through deindustrialization, austerity, deregulation, wage stagnation, the abolition of unions, massive expenditures on war and intelligence, a refusal to address the climate emergency, and a virtual tax boycott for the richest individuals and corporations. These predators intend to keep us in bondage, victims of a corporate neo-feudalism, and they have perfected their instruments of Orwellian control. The tyranny imposed on others is now imposed on us. From its inception, the CIA carried out assassinations, coups, torture, and illegal spying and abuse, including on that of U.S. citizens. Activities exposed in 1975 by the Church Committee hearings in the Senate and the Pike Committee hearings in the House. All these crimes, especially after the attacks of 9/11, have returned with a vengeance. The CIA is a rogue and unaccountable paramilitary organization with its own armed units and drone program, death squads, and a vast archipelago of global black sites where kidnapped victims are tortured and disappear. The U.S. allocates a secret black budget of $50 billion a year to hide multiple types of clandestine projects carried out by the National Security Agency, the CIA, and other intelligence agencies, usually beyond the scrutiny of Congress. The CIA has a well-oiled apparatus to kidnap, torture, and assassinate targets around the globe, which is why, since it had already set up a system of 24-hour video surveillance of Julian in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, it quite naturally discussed kidnapping and assassinating him. That is its business. Senator Frank Church, after examining the heavily redacted CIA documents released to his committee, defined the CIA's covert activity, and I quote, as a semantic disguise for murder, coercion, blackmail, bribery, the spreading of lies, and consorting with known torturers and international terrorists. All despotisms mask state persecution with sham court proceedings. The show trials and troikas in Stalin's Soviet Union, the raving Nazi judges in fascist Germany, the denunciation rallies in Mao's China. State crime is cloaked in a faux legality, judicial farce. Julian is extradited and sentenced, and given the Lubyanka-like proclivities of the Eastern District of Virginia, this is a near certainty. It means that those of us who have published classified material, as I did when I worked for the New York Times, will become criminals.
Hear him.
It means that the Iron Curtain will be pulled down to mask the abuses of power. It means that the state, which through special administrative measures, or SAMs, anti-terrorism laws, and the Espionage Act, have created our homegrown version of Stalin's Article 58, can imprison anyone, anywhere in the world, who dares commit the crime of telling the truth. We are here today to fight for Julian, but we are also here to fight against powerful subterranean forces that, in demanding Julian's extradition and life imprisonment, have declared war on journalism. We are here today to fight for Julian, but we are also here to fight for the restoration of the rule of law and democracy. We are here today to fight for Julian, but we are also here to dismantle the wholesale Stasi-like state surveillance erected across the West. We are here today for Julian. But we are also here to overthrow, and let me repeat that word for the benefit of those in the FBI and Homeland Security who have come here to monitor us, overthrow the corporate state and create a government of the people, by the people, and for the people that will cherish rather than persecute the best among us.
Everybody. Okay, good news, we're done. Marathon of speakers is over. I want to thank you guys for coming out, for hanging out, for staying through so many speakers. Thank you to our speakers for coming. Busboys and Poets, 4 to 6:30. It's 450 K Street. Please come out, hang out. You can sign up for more information over there with our good friend Marty. And I also just want to thank everybody that helped organize. It was not just me. Everybody stop saying that. Bernadette and Marty and Suzanne and Paula and Amber and everybody that helped out. Couldn't have done it without them. Thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate it. And if you're a media and you want to do any interviews with any of the speakers, please see Suzanne down at the press tent. Thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate it. And free Assange. Free Assange.
Through that secret door, or soon you will cry. It's not allowed to have the key. Whoever touches it dies. How much is the truth worth? You will pay for pity. A black swan already over the end that know what happens in the room, more secret than the deep state. Who can dare not pretend not to see? We will invoke censorship to silence those voices. We'll ask what a lie is and what's reality. And what's reality? Julian, your fight for our freedom now knows its killer. Julian is just out of cowardice. Each was an accomplice. Do not hope to change the sentence. We've made our decision, and if anyone still opposes, great is our prison. Don't go through the secret door, or soon you will cry. Don't cross the line, whoever touches it dies. How much is the truth worth outside the prison walls? A black swan flies already, but you don't give a damn.
I'm here in Topanga Canyon in LA. We did this on Wednesday, but we're really, really proud and happy to be with you all and the People's Forum and for the Belmarsh Tribunal. Right, hang on a minute. I've just got a couple of words to say before we sing a song for everybody. This is something I came across recently, and I wrote it in October 2015. And it was a sort of open letter to Shaka Amar. For those of you who don't know, Shaka's an English bloke who was locked up in Guantanamo for 14 years. Anyway, I finished a letter I wrote to Shaka Amar saying this: Shaka Amar, you are a man of incalculable spirit and courage, and doubtless also faith. Your indomitable resistance in the face of remorseless persecution lights a corner of the dark. We owe you an enormous debt of gratitude. Welcome home, my friend. With great respect and love, Roger Waters. Well, substitute the words Shaka and Amar with the words Julian and Assange, and then you get words I had wished to utter years ago and hope to be able to utter tonight or tomorrow morning or the next morning. But let's let this drag on. Here's how it sounds. Julian Assange, you are a man of incalculable spirit and courage, and doubtless also faith. Your indomitable resistance in the face of remorseless persecution lights a corner of the dark. We owe you an enormous debt of gratitude. Welcome home, my friend. With great respect and love. And then I signed my name. So let us prevail upon the ruling class to do the right thing and set Julian Assange free. Shall we sing the song? So you think you can tell heaven from hell, and blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel ray? A smile from a veil. Do you think you can tell? And did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts? Hot ashes for trees, and hot air for a cool breeze, cold comfort for change. And did you exchange a walk-on part in the wall for a lead role in a cage? That you were here. Oh, I wish you were here. I wish you were here. Running over the same old ground. What have we found? The same old thing. And I wish that you would hear. Wish you were here, brother.